Welcome to the January 13th meeting of the State Board of Education. We are running a few minutes late because our work session went a few minutes over, but it was very helpful, and we appreciate Ms. Freno and her team getting that together for us. I want to welcome Ms. McIntyre this morning, filling in for Ms. Sharon, and please let us know if there's anything that you need. Will you join me this morning in a moment of silence before we begin? Thank you. I don't think we have any recognitions this morning. Are there any changes to the agenda? Okay. There is one that I know of, action item 2. The West Helena Standards Waiver has been pulled. They were able to get what they need as far as teachers, so that item has been pulled. Any other changes? Okay. What about the consent agenda? Does any board member have an item that you would like to discuss or pull on the consent agenda? Okay. Then I need a motion to approve.
I move to approve.
Okay. Have a motion by Dr. Rankin. Seconded by Ms. McFetrich. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Consent agenda is approved. So we're going to move on to our action agenda. And our first item is a request for a waiver. Ms. Saraceni?
Hello.
Go ahead.
Oh, well, actually, I'm jumping the gun there. I'm
Good
sorry.
morning. We'll let Ms.
Don't have a seat
Saraceni.
over here.
We'll let Ms.
1,000
Saraceni.
pardons.
No problem. We'll let Ms. Saraceni kind of get us started this morning.
Yes, good morning. Carly Saraceni, Assistant Commissioner, Educator Effectiveness and Licensure. And the first item on our agenda is the waiver request from Emily Michelle Melton, and she is here with her attorney, Mr. Allgood. So before you, we have the process. I know that we sent it electronically, and you also have it paper right in front of you, so I just want to make sure we understand the process. Today is about a disqualifying offense, and again, when it's a disqualifying offense with a child maltreatment, we do not have all the information. And so it's so important for the individual to be here so you can ask questions and clarify. Okay? So they're asking a request for a disqualifying offense on a child maltreatment. And so I'm going to turn it over.
Can I get Ms. Freno
Yes.
to start first? Ms. Freno, would you come and give us kind of the procedure that we need to follow?
All the witnesses who are not lawyers will need to be sworn in. Each party gets the opportunity to make a 5-minute opening statement. Ms. Saraceni has indicated she will not be making an opening statement. After that, each party gets 20 minutes to present, starting with the educator.
Okay. All right. So anyone that's going to testify, would you stand and raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. And I think Ms. Saraceni is waived, so
Okay.
you're welcome to
Come on
come.
up here with me, Emily. My name is Greg Allagood, and this is Emily Melton from Huntsville. Do each of you have this little 4-page exhibit packet that we furnished? It's a cover sheet, and then there's a copy of a section of Arkansas statute that sets out the factors that you can take into consideration in considering a waiver. And well, let's just make sure everybody's got it. I brought some extra copies just in case.
Would you mind giving one to our court reporter down there?
Not at all.
Why don't you give them to me and I'll
You're
take
so-
care of
I
it.
appreciate that. So, in April of 2019, Emily Melton got a DWI. Now, a DWI is not a disqualifying offense under Arkansas statute 617-410. It just isn't. Her daughter was in the car with her. So the Department of Human Services was notified, and they made a true finding determination of maltreatment for what they called neglect, which is actually failure to protect your child from a potentially dangerous situation. I would respectfully submit to you, while not good, that's the very mildest form of maltreatment when you take a look at some of the other heinous things that are defined under the definitions of maltreatment. And I furnished you with a copy of that portion of the Arkansas statute that sets out the factors that the state board should take into consideration in deciding if you should grant Ms. Melton a waiver from revoking her teaching license on account of her name appearing on the Child Maltreatment Registry. And you also have a letter from Audra Kimbrell, who is the superintendent of the Huntsville School District, and from Danny Thomas, who is the president of the Huntsville School Board, who are telling you that they knew about this at the time, they've known about it all along, that she has worked at the Huntsville School District all along, that they love her, they want to keep her as a teacher, they do not consider her to be a threat to the health or safety of school children or school personnel, which is the overarching factor to take into consideration, and they are imploring you to please grant her a waiver of revoking her teaching license so that they can keep her employed there at the Huntsville School District. And here is Ms. Melton, who drove down from Huntsville this morning, if anybody has any questions of her.
We'll see if any board members have a question.
I do.
Okay, Mr. Sutton?
Ms. Melton, will you tell us the circumstances by which you were cited for the offense?
I was a DWI, and my daughter was with me for the DWI, so DHS was involved with that.
So did you leave an establishment or?
Oh, yes, I was at a friend's house for a birthday.
And what was your court punishment?
I had my fines, and then I was charged the DWI. I was not charged for a child endangerment. I was just charged for DWI.
Ms. McFetters? Questions? Dr. Rankin? Ms. Dean? Dr. Moore? Mr. Henderson?
I do not.
Ms. Post? I think I skipped you, Rhonda. Ms. Woods?
Yes, I do. Ms. Melton, can you explain to us what you have done since the DWI in terms of, have you had to attend meetings? What have you done since then?
Yes, I took some classes, and I took some parenting classes, the Mothers Against Drunk Driving class as well.
Have you done anything else?
No, I believe that was it.
Okay. I know this isn't, I mean, do you think that you have your drinking under control, or was this like sort of a one-off offense and this had never happened before? I mean, I think we just need a higher comfort level to make sure that this isn't going to happen again.
Yes, ma'am, this will never happen again. I do not drink. This has never happened before, and nor would ever happen again. That was the worst mistake I've ever made in my entire life. I would never, ever do that again, ever.
Were you a teacher at the time that this happened? I
Yes,
think the
ma'am.
letter said yes, you were.
Yes,
How long
ma'am.
had you been a teacher?
This is my 4th year,
Okay, and so this would have been your first year teaching or your second,
my 1st year.
based on the dates? It was your first year. Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Just to make sure that you understand what what we're thinking about, Ms. Melton, is we need, you said you took a couple of classes or whatever. We just kind of would like some sort of, proof is probably not the right word, but something that you have done to ensure that this is not going to happen again, that you are trying to become a better person, that you have done the work that needs to be done to ensure the safety of not only your child but other children in the state of Arkansas, because we are, as a body, responsible for not only your child but all children. And so that's kind of what we're trying to get you to say, is something that will assure us that you have done the work to show us that this is not going to happen again. Does that make sense?
And when DHS became involved, they referred the matter to a juvenile judge, and Ms. Melton had to be under that judge's purview for a period of time, and that was the forum in which she took the classes that she was referencing. So why don't you go into a little bit more detail for the folks about what it was that the juvenile judge required of you before she released you from her supervision.
Okay. I did take some parenting classes. I did go see a counselor for several months as well. And then they released me and I quit drinking. I mean, I don't drink at all anymore. That not seeing my daughter for a period of time really destroyed me. And my job means the world to me. I love my kids. I love being a teacher. And this is not something I would ever do again.
Well, now, do you currently have, I think your daughter actually went to live with her daddy for a short period of time, but she's back in your full custody.
I do have full custody of her now, yes. So
Okay.
I do have full custody.
So there were some consequences, and you
Yes.
followed through all that was required.
I
of
did,
you,
yes, ma'am. I did absolutely everything required of me.
and you have been released from all.
Yes, ma'am.
And
As
this
a
is
quick-
just because I don't know. Is there a way to get this cleared off the child maltreatment record?
Well, here's the problem. If you were charged with a criminal offense that's the same elements as the matter for which you were placed on the child maltreatment registry, the law says that your name can never be removed
Okay.
from the child maltreatment registry. See, otherwise, that's the avenue that would have been pursued, would have been a name removal. And so her only option then was to ask the state board to grant a waiver of the requirement that you would otherwise revoke her teaching license on account of her name being on the maltreatment registry.
But she was not charged with child endangerment or anything like
The
that.
only thing on her record was the DWI, which is not a disqualifying offense in and of itself.
So, and that was something I was going to mention to the board, because these licensure actions, they do get confusing when the DHS element is involved. The reason why this came before you today was because of the child maltreatment central registry aspect of it. The DUI by itself would not have come to you for any type of licensure action. So if that helps clarify for you. So in the past, these are like the other child maltreatment aspects of the licensure action. You do have to grant a waiver because having your name on that record is a disqualifying offense, or a disqualifier from continuing to be employed and have a license.
Are there any other questions from board members? Ms. Woods? Mr. Henderson? Dr. Moore? Okay. Any other discussion? We have a couple here. Go ahead, Ms. McPetridge, and then we'll get Ms. Dean.
I'm just interested, how are you keeping yourself sober? You've said you're committed to not drinking anymore. Are you going to a program or counseling to help you with that?
No, ma'am. I was not really a big drinker. I just drank that day, which was not a smart choice on mine, but I don't drink. I wasn't really a drinker then, so it wasn't a problem for me to just stop.
Ms. Dean?
I didn't have a question, I just had a comment.
We've got some that are online, so be sure you speak up.
Okay. I didn't have a question, I just have a comment. Thank you for being more transparent about your story. It's helpful for us to know the details so that we can make the best decision. Because until you went into further detail, I was having issue. So I just want to say, I know it's in your past, but it's good that you share with us and be open with us about your experience and what you've learned and what you've come through and what you've learned on the other side of this. So thank you for being more transparent. Appreciate that.
Any other questions or comments from board members?
I'll
Does the
just pile on
department have something that you would like to say?
We can step aside.
Carly Saraceni, Assistant Commissioner. It's just with this, it's either deny, waive, or waive with conditions. And that is all.
Okay.
And I appreciate you guys because when it is a child maltreatment, we don't know the specifics, so it's really nice when the individual comes up and you guys can ask her the questions straight to her.
So the department doesn't offer a recommendation one way or the other?
No, because it's your
Okay.
decision.
Got it.
And so those are the three options.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
the options are to grant the waiver with conditions, or deny the waiver. Okay? So if there's no further discussion, we're ready for a motion. Ms. Dean?
I move to grant the waiver.
Okay. We have a motion by Ms. Dean to grant the waiver,
I second that.
a second by Mr. Sutton. Do we want to just do a voice or a roll call? Just voice? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Okay, congratulations, and we're going to hold you at your word that this won't ever happen again. Okay. All
May
right.
we be excused?
You can be excused.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much. Ms. Pfeffer just reminded us that because she is on the maltreatment, it can't be removed, and so every time she renews her license, it will come back, and so that will be a way that we can make sure that it's not happening again. So,
License good for 5 years.
all right, so item 2 has been pulled, and so we are down to the 1240 waivers. I think Lee County is the one that we're discussing, and Ms. Freno.
Thank you, Ms. Newton. Lori Freno, Arkansas Department of Education. The Lee County School District has requested a waiver of teacher licensure and library media specialist licensure. This is not a waiver of the library media specialist program in any way, just the licensure. They've requested this waiver for 3 years. I know that Superintendent Murdoch is on the Zoom, and you would need to swear in any witnesses who will be testifying, including Superintendent Murdoch. And the school district will then have 20 minutes to present their waiver. And of course, the chair can always grant more time if needed. And I have, just a reminder, I've handed out one additional document to everyone that should be attached to the back of the Act 1240 waiver that I already, that was on your agenda.
All right, I see Ms. Murdoch, and I also see Ms. Hayden online. Welcome, both of you, and would you please raise your right, is there anyone else on the district besides you two? Okay, all right, raise your right hand, and do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, go ahead, Ms. Murdoch.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you for allowing us to speak on behalf of Lee County School District this morning. I know that many of you are battling, as we are, the pandemic at this time, and it's making education a little bit even more difficult during this time, but we are still trudging along and trying to make sure that we keep our students the #1 focus. As you know, Lee County is gone through.
Pause until we hear a little better.
Ms. Murdoch, we're having a little trouble hearing you. I don't know if you could get closer to your microphone.
Okay. I have my earbuds in. Hopefully you can hear me a little better.
Let's see if we can get it a little bit louder.
Okay, can you hear me?
Is that better, everyone? A little bit.
Okay, I'll just put my microphone a little bit closer to my ear. I never heard anyone say that that I wasn't speaking loud enough.
Use your teacher voice this morning.
I'm using my teacher voice, my drum major voice as well. So as you know, again, thank you for allowing us to speak on behalf of the Lee County School District this morning. I have my Director of Learning Services, as you mentioned, Mary Hayden, on the line as well. Lee County is requesting an extension of the waivers for Act 1240. And as you know, the Act 1240, if a little history on that, we've been battling and being challenged in the Delta part of the state with trying to find licensed teachers. As you well know, Representative Murdoch some years ago is the one that was the lead on this actual act, who knows me very well. But at any rate, Lee County is still struggling in that aspect of trying to find licensed teachers. So we believe in growing our own in Lee County. We're trying to make sure that we can grow our own. And right now we have several teachers that are in the district. I will say I'm a product of the district. I was a non-traditional teacher as well when I was hired back in the 1900s. But at any rate, you already know our plight down here in the Delta. I don't need to explain all of that to you, but we are requesting that if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them. But we are asking for an extension of those teacher waivers so that we can get teachers in front of our students every day in the classroom. And I will address any questions. And Ms. Hayden, do you have anything to add?
No, ma'am, you did a wonderful job. Good morning, everyone.
We'll see if any board members have questions this morning. Dr. Moore?
Yes, I do. I wanted to double check about how long have they had this waiver before? Was it a 5-year waiver previously?
Can someone from the department answer maybe? Ms. Murdoch, maybe you can answer.
I think the previous waiver was for 3 years.
3 years, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
And so how many teachers, do y'all know how many you employed under the waiver?
So I think right now it's about 27. Is that correct, Ms. Hayden?
That's correct. That's the count I have.
And through that, are you all continue to require them to seek licensure within 3 years or a certain time period? And what routes are those individuals seeking licensure through primarily?
So we're 3 years, we're working with our teachers. We have 4 or 5 of them that have been under the waiver that have gotten their license. So we are continuing to trudge away on that. So we have a 3-year requirement. Hopefully the ones that we have, first year, second year, or either third year, will meet that mark at 3rd year. Ms. Hayden, do you have anything to add? Of course, we have to use the pathways. Arkansas Department of Education, DESE, OCSS, and our local co-op is working with us on those various pathways. And of course, Carly Saraceni and her team have been down to actually work with us as well. So we're doing our best to try to get licensed folks in, but if we can't, we're trying to grow our own.
Yes, I do know that we have about 6 right now who are in a licensure program, and most of the 1240 waivers that we have right now are first year, and so we are working on getting those teachers into the program, but they are brand new, very first year teachers. I do know we just hired one last month or earlier this month, one or a couple in December. So these people are very new to us, and we are working on getting them into some kind of certification program. And then some of them have come to us out of retirement as well. So
I know it's certainly challenging in your part of the state, and then coupled with the pandemic and everything. So I appreciate those efforts. Can y'all speak just a little bit more to the support you're providing, especially, I know it's certainly really hard to start as a new teacher in the middle of a school year.
So I will let Ms. Hayden go address that, but we try to provide support with the professional development. Of course, we have Solution Tree in our midst. They're in their 3rd year working with the district. But Ms. Hayden, she's our professional development coordinator, and she can kind of explain more specifically some of the things that we're doing with our new folks.
yes, most of our support is coming from the Great Rivers Educational Cooperative. We're working closely with Kelsey Riley, and I spoke with her this morning to make sure I was on the right track. But most of our teachers, with the exception of those who've just come in, she hadn't started working with those teachers yet, but we're working with those, getting those certifications in. They do receive training, just like all the other teachers do. We do have some who are moving forward with their personal trainings as well, getting degrees and such. But they are required to get all of the trainings required by all the other teachers. And we want to provide mentoring for them as well. So we have mentoring with,
And these,
I want to say we have mentoring with those teachers who are veterans. So they have mentors.
and these teachers have come to us with college degrees.
Yes.
And some of them have master's degrees. So we're doing our best to give them the pedagogical knowledge with the professional development and content. Some of them are already strong in their content, just trying to make sure they understand instructional strategies and all of that as it pertains to our particular kind of student that we have in the district. So.
Anything else, Dr. Moore?
I know that's all my questions. I appreciate you all answering them. Thank you, and thank you for your work.
Thank you, Dr. Moore.
Mr. Henderson?
No questions.
Ms. Woods? No questions? Okay.
No, ma'am.
Ms. Dean? Dr. Rankin?
I just want to say how much I appreciate the efforts that you all are going to in your area. And Ms. Murdoch, I love the power of your story. No one can do a grow your own program better than you. You are a product of that area, and I feel like you bring a really powerful perspective and potential with that. I also love how this is such a collaborative effort with all of these programs working simultaneously. I mean, you're looking into opportunity culture and the REACH program and Educator Rising and Grow Your Own. I love how this is a full-scale effort and initiative, and I feel like y'all are going to reap really rich dividends with that. We will be eager to see that. I'm certainly looking forward to making a motion to approve this waiver when it's time.
Thank you, Dr. Rankin, because I did mention opportunity culture that we're designing this year in Educator Rising. We were trying to focus on our young people, our students, to get them to want to become teachers. And there's a couple things I always tell them. I said 2 things I said I wasn't going to do when I was in Lee High School back in the 1900s was 1, be an educator, and the other one was stay in Mariana. Never say never.
That's right. That's right.
That's right. And may I add, Dr. Rankin, that Mrs. Murdoch is teaching this of the Educator Rising herself. She goes in and works with those students.
Not teaching it yet, but the plan is to get students in the room.
Yes.
Fantastic. Yes. That's great. Mr. Bettridge? Mr. Sutton? Ms. Post?
Just a quick comment. I was honored to speak yesterday at the Superintendent's Symposium with AAEA, and it was brought to the attention of the room that we have 35,000 teachers in Arkansas, and nearly half of those have 3 years or less of teaching experience. I believe it was 48%, Dr. Pfeffer? Yes. So anything that I can do as your Teacher of the Year to support you, please reach out to me. I would love to come and just encourage those younger teachers.
Thank you so much.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate that.
Thank you.
We will be calling you, by the way.
Ms. Saraceni, I know that you have been working with Lee County on recruitment and retention. Could you kind of give us an update on that process that gives us some assurances that they do have a good, solid plan going?
Yes, Carly Saraceni, Assistant Commissioner, and we're very excited because they are one of our opportunity culture schools this year that we are helping with that initiative, implement it. And so we have been to Lee County 5 times. And so you can see that we keep going back and we have some really great successful stories. We have 3 of the educators that when we first started working with them have already made it to licensure, full licensure, which is huge, and that's so important. And then we also have several on the pathway. We even met with the paraprofessionals that are in the buildings. We met with 16 of those just so that we could get them on a path to eventually taking over a classroom. And so not only are we working with some of the non-licensed staff in the classrooms, but we're also, as Ms. Murdoch said, growing what we have there. And so my group came back and we're just excited. And I just want to say that Ms. Smith's group, I know that Brent Miller is always calling someone in my division and working with them to make sure they're providing all the information needed to Lee County to make sure that we're growing. And he even worked with Williams Baptist to get some people to go straight to Lee County. I know Ms. Murdoch is shaking her head, so that they could get some experience there, and maybe they could even recruit them that were in their Field 1, Field 2 experiences and internships. So we're really thinking outside the box. And as you said, Dr. Rankin, that we're layering the support with all the different initiatives and all the divisions across the agency to help out. So I hope that answered your question, because they're doing multiple things. So to focus on one, but it's exciting to see their Educator Rising come up, and that's trying to recruit those high school students and get them wanting to become teachers, because that's our future.
Yes. Ms. Smith, did you have something you wanted to add?
I found myself getting emotional. So Stacey Smith, Deputy Commissioner. So first off, Willie Murdoch has done an excellent job with this. Excellent job. But I don't want you to think that this is going to be all these great initiatives that we probably won't be back in 3 years again asking again, because we probably will. They are working diligently, and COVID has taken and hit and banged this district up like no other district. And she's coming on live and strong, but they've lost people this year. And they've lost family, and we walk up and down and we get resignations because of health. This district is getting beat up, and they are stepping up, and I cannot praise Carly's team enough. I cannot praise my OCSS staff enough. They're there every day, and I hear stories about ADE staff working in the hallway, ADE staff coming in and teaching math when we have to. Willie going into those buildings every single day. Carly's team, 5 visits documented since spring. So thank you for recognizing the collaboration and the work. And while this is a moment to celebrate in their success, it is hard, hard, hard work. And I don't want anybody to not think that it's not, because they are doing everything and they're pulling out all the stops. So I appreciate Ms. Murdoch, and I appreciate the passion that she brings each and every day to the district. So thank you.
Ms. Murdoch, I hope you realize that's high praise. When you get Ms. Smith to praise like that, we know it's a great job. And so thank y'all for all the hard work that you're doing. We appreciate that on behalf of your students.
And we appreciate the Arkansas Department of Ed, DESE, for all that they're doing for us. Sheila Whitlow rocks. Dr. Brent Miller rocks. Listen, you all should be proud of what the ADE is doing for Lee County as well. We appreciate them.
Madam Chair, may I add something?
Sure.
So, I won't keep us long, but I'm glad that Ms. Smith brought up the fact that, you know, they may be back. And I know after last month's conversation, this is a little bit different though because of the work that's going on, because we want them to come back, and here's why. As part of the teacher residency model, there may be the need for continued waivers for our master teachers to be able to oversee our interns that we're in our apprentices that are coming. The reason why I say that this group may be back is because a few weeks ago, when I was in a co-op, Ms. Murdoch was talking about her students that were going to be part of Ed Rising, and she has told her students that if they're participating in the course, then they're going to have a summer job as a tutor. And I'm hoping in those seniors, as they have their summer job as tutors, are then going to go on and start taking their coursework. I hope that she is able to continue to employ them as tutors, as instructional aides in other capacities, so that they are there at the school. And as they take on increased responsibilities, there may need to be some of those waivers until they have their bachelor's degree and all of their licensure requirements met. So in those cases, I do hope that they are back. And Ms. Murdoch also alerted me to the fact that we had started kind of putting a barrier up for those students to be part of our Arkansas Tutoring Corps and to receive that really good training, that they're going to need to be good tutors. And that's my fault. And I told her, I said, well, I think I was wrong. And I made a phone call to Ms. Wally and said, I think I was wrong. And we need to back up, because when we have these kinds of plans and systems in place, that's what we want. So I do think that when we step back, this district may be our premier grow your own model in the end. And so, yes, I do hope that we're coming back. And if it takes providing some additional flexibility, then that's what we need to do.
Thank you. So I think it sounds like we're ready for a waiver. Dr. Rankin?
I'm honored to make the motion to grant the Lee County School District for an Act 1240 waiver for 3 years.
Okay, and I just wanted to clarify, Ms. Newton, there are 2 waivers. One is for teacher licensure, and one is for library media specialist licensure.
Do we need 2 motions?
You can do it either way that you want to. If you want to have further discussion on library media specialists, that's fine. You can do it either way you choose to. I just want to make sure you voted on both of the requests for the waivers.
Is there any discussion on the library media licensure? So, Dr. Rankin, is your motion for?
It is, for both.
Okay, but Dr. Rankin has made a motion for a waiver for teacher licensure and library media licensure for 3 years. Is there a second? Seconded by Ms. McFetridge. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations, Ms. Murdoch, Ms. Hayden. We are very proud of you, and just keep up the great work.
Thank you. We appreciate
Thank you all.
and thank you for supporting us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
We are moving on now to district conversion charter renewals. Mr. Sutherland. Just want to say thank you on the organization of the agenda, putting those bullet points and highlighting the major points of the request. That was very helpful, so thank you for doing that.
Well, that was the former director, so we can thank him.
Okay, all right, so thank you for doing that.
All right. So Matthew Sutherland, Coordinator of Standards and System Support, Charter, Interim Charter Director. So on December 14th, 2021, the Charter Authorizing Panel approved the following conversion charter renewals for a period of 5 years, unless otherwise noted. So we have first Cabot Ace, So the district requested renewal of the charter for a 5-year period. The campus serves grades 5 through 12. The current enrollment cap is 2,500 students, and they want to change the charter name from Academic Center of Excellence, ACE, to Cabot Panther Academy. And then the charter will continue to follow a combination of the Alternative Learning Environment, ALE, and virtual only and credit recovery models. A digital learning plan was included with the waiver requests.
We'll see if there's any questions or discussion. Mr. Henderson?
Yes, on the composite score mean, looks like the score for 2021 obviously went down. Can you discuss that a little bit? My assumption was probably the COVID, but can you talk about that some?
I couldn't, we could hear, but I didn't understand what you said.
Yeah.
Could you ask your question again, Mr. Henderson?
Can you hear me better now?
Try it again, let's see.
Can you hear me better now?
A little bit.
Yes,
yeah.
a little bit.
Okay, I'll try to talk a little bit more clear. On the composite score for the 2021 year, looks like the score went down some. Can you elaborate a little bit on that, please?
The score went down in the 2021 year.
Yes.
That's Ms. Kaufman.
Thank you, Mr. Henderson, for that question. Deborah Kaufman, Public School Accountability. 88% of our schools had a lower score in the 2021 school year on their ESSA School Index. Certainly, we attribute that to all of the effects and transitions and uncertainties that schools experienced in the beginning of COVID. So we expected that. We're happy to see that it was, while we don't think it was great for our state, of course, never is in a pandemic, but it was not as bad as other states have experienced. But I will say that our schools are working very closely with our co-ops and district support team to try to fill in that learning loss and get our students and our schools back on track. So we see that pretty much across the state.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Moore? No questions? Ms. Woods?
No, ma'am.
Ms. Dean? Dr. Rankin? Ms. McFettridge?
I'm just curious why the name change? Is there anyone from the district on there? Okay.
This is Aaron Randolph from Catholic Schools.
Okay. Mr. Randolph?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, members of the board, for hearing us out. Really, at our school and at our district, we're looking for a rebrand, just for a renewal. And one of the things that we've noticed over the past couple of years is that there's a lot of students that may have had an association with the school for at-risk students or at-risk kids and may not be interested in applying to our conversion charter school. And so we felt like it was just time for a new beginning. And so rebranding allowed us to do that and talk more about the great things that are happening for all students and just kind of open the doors more, hopefully, for our community to see that.
Okay, thank you. Also, there's a teaching load of 200, and are you able to add additional compensation for these teachers?
We are able to, but with this waiver request at 200, and that is primarily with those that are handling digital students, we are not doing additional compensation at this point. I think if we did, we would fall under the rules and regs that currently exist for additional teacher load for 512, and that would be something that as a district we'd have to have a policy if we exceeded 200.
Okay. How are you supporting this staff then?
Yes, ma'am. So we have actually 2 full-time administrators and a few other curriculum supports in place. For those staff members, we also are able to organize their schedules. They're not overwhelmed at any point, nor do they have great massive loads of students at one time. Also, they're using Edmentum as a content management system, so we're not asking them to create their own curriculum in order to handle all of these students.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Sutton? Ms. Post?
Madam Chair, I did have one.
Okay.
I just wanted to say one thing. I really appreciated in this presentation hearing directly from the students. So I knew that took a little bit of creative innovation on your part to embed that into the PowerPoint presentation, but I really did appreciate that. Helped put a student-first perspective and impact on what's going on. So I appreciated that element of the CABINET presentation.
Thank you for that.
I want to remind board members that our motion would be to review or not review. Okay. And I think if there's no other discussion, we are ready for a motion.
I'll make a motion not to review.
Okay, we have a motion not to review by Ms. McFetridge.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Dean. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Congratulations.
All right, the next one on the docket is Hot Springs Junior Academy. So we're looking at a renewal. So the district has requested renewal of the charter for a 5-year period. The campus serves grades 7 through 9. The current enrollment cap is 900 students. The charter will continue to follow a traditional educational model, and a digital learning plan was not included.
Okay. Let's see if we have any questions. Ms. Dean? Dr. Rankin? Ms. McFetridge? Mr. Sutton? Ms. Post? Dr. Moore? Ms. Woods? Mr. Henderson? Okay, I don't think we have any questions. Again, our motion, if there's no discussion, is to review or not review.
I'll make the motion not to review.
Have a motion by Mr. Sutton not to review.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Dean. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Congratulations.
All right, next up is Lincoln High School. The district has requested the renewal of the charter for a 5-year period. The campus serves grades 9 through 12. The current enrollment cap is 850 students. The charter will continue to follow a combination of the traditional education model with a focus on trade, skills, certification, college, and careers, and a digital learning plan was included.
Okay, I guess yeah, I think
Did we skip?
Oh, did we skip?
cross-county.
Oh, we did.
Yeah, we
Okay.
skipped
I
cross-county.
apologize.
Okay.
Oh,
I
it was
didn't
flipped
vote.
over on the other page. Sorry
All right.
about that.
That's okay.
So, Cross County Elementary Technology Academy, the district requested the renewal of a charter for a 5-year period. The campus serves grades K through 6. The current enrollment cap is 500 students. The charter will continue to follow a traditional education model, and a digital learning plan was not included.
Okay. So we are discussing Cross County right now for their charter renewal. We'll see if we have any questions or any discussion. Ms. Dean? Dr. Rankin? Ms. McFetridge? Mr. Sutton? Ms. Post? Mr. Henderson?
No.
Dr. Moore? Ms. Woods? Okay, so looks like we don't have any. Again, our motion is to review or not review.
I move to not review.
Motion by Ms. Dean not to review,
I second.
seconded by Dr. Rankin. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Congratulations to Cross County. Now we're at Lincoln.
Okay, so now back to Lincoln. Lincoln High School, the district requested the renewal of the charter for a 5-year period. The campus serves grades 9 through 12. The current enrollment cap is 850 students. The charter will continue to follow a combination of the traditional education model with a focus on trade, skills, certification, college, and careers, and a digital learning plan was included.
Okay. Let's see if they have any questions or discussion on Lincoln. Ms. Woods? Dr. Moore? Mr. Henderson?
No.
Anyone here have any? Okay, so we are ready for a motion either to review or not review.
Make a motion to not review.
Okay, a motion by Mr. Henderson not to review.
I'll second.
Seconded by Dr. Rankin. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, congratulations to Lincoln High School.
Okay, next up is Prairie Grove High School. Okay, just questioning.
Okay, I'm keeping it.
The district requested the renewal of, for 5-year period. The campus serves grades 9 through 12. The charter will continue to follow a traditional education model, and a digital learning plan was not included.
Okay, let's see if we have any questions or discussions. Ms. Woods? Dr. Moore? Mr. Henderson? Anyone here? Okay, again, we don't have any questions or discussions, so we're ready for a motion to review or not review.
The motion not to review.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. McFetridge not to review,
I'll second.
seconded by Mr. Sutton. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, congratulations, Prairie Grove High School.
All right, next up is the North Little Rock Center of Excellence. The district requested the renewal of the charter for a 5-year period. The campus serves grades 9 through 12. The current enrollment cap is 3,000 students. The charter will continue to follow a blending of traditional and digital education models, and a digital learning plan was not included.
Okay. Well, again, we'll see if we have any questions. Mr. Henderson? Dr. Moore? Ms. Woods? Anyone here have a question or comment? Okay, so we're ready for a motion to review or not review.
I move to not review.
Motion by Ms. Dean not to review,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Sutton. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Congratulations, North Little Rock Center of Excellence. That gets us to lunch, and we are ahead of schedule. Could we move on and do the other charters? Would there be a problem moving on? If we had a question, we could wait till this afternoon? Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All right, Matthew Sutherland, Coordinator of Standards and System Support, Interim Charter Director. So on December 15th, 2021, the Charter Authorizing Panel approved the renewal of the following open enrollment charters for a 5-year period unless otherwise noted. So the first one is the Excel Center. The district requested renewal of the charter for a 5-year period. The campus serves adults age 19 and over, completing grades 9 through 12. The current enrollment cap is 1,050 students, and the charter will continue to follow an adult education model.
We'll see if we have any questions or comments on this one. Ms. Woods? Dr. Moore? Mr. Henderson? Anyone here?
This is in Little Rock, right?
They have campuses in Little Rock. At one time, we approved an expansion, I think, was it to Fort Smith? I can't remember. No, not to Fort Smith. They were talking about expanding. I don't think we had approved it. Okay. They were discussing expanding to other areas of the state. Okay. All right, any discussion? Okay, are we ready for a motion to review or not review?
I move to not review.
A motion by Ms. Dean not to review. Seconded by Ms. McFetridge. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, congratulations to the Excel Center. We are very proud and very thankful for the work that you do with our adult education needs.
So the next charter is actually a conversion charter and not an open enrollment charter. I just wanted that to be noted in the minutes.
Okay.
It's River Valley Virtual Academy, and the district requested renewal of the charter for a 5-year period. The campus serves grades K through 12. The current enrollment cap is 1,000 students. The charter will continue to follow a virtual-only education model.
All right. We'll see if we have any questions or discussion on this one. Ms. Woods? Dr. Moore? Mr. Henderson? Anyone here? I don't know if they're listening or not, but I just wanted to express my appreciation for this model. It is a great model, and it's been very effective across the state. And so we appreciate their hard work and getting this up and running. Okay, so we're ready for a motion? Okay, a motion not to review by Ms. McFetridge.
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Sutton. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Congratulations, River Valley Virtual Academy.
Okay, next up is Arkansas Lighthouse Academies. The district requested the renewal of the charter for a 5-year period. The campus serves grades P through 12. The current enrollment cap is 2,419 students. The charter will continue to follow a traditional education model, and a digital learning plan was included in waivers requested.
Okay. Mr. Henderson, do you have any questions? Dr. Moore? Ms. Woods? Anyone here? Any questions or discussions?
I noticed there's a 2-year review set by the, so does that, if we not renew this and it's renewed for 5 years, will that be automatically set in?
That was part of
Does
their...
that need to be part of our motion, or?
No, that's automatically part of what the agreement was that day. Any other questions? Okay, so we're either review or not review.
I'll move to not review.
Okay, Dr. Rankin has made a motion to not review. Seconded by Ms. Dean. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Congratulations to Arkansas Lighthouse Academy.
So next up, we have Exalt Academy of Southwest Little Rock. The district requested a renewal of the charter for a 10-year period. However, this still needs approval at the January 18th CAP meeting. It doesn't? Okay. Okay.
This one's a little confusing, so let me help. They were approved by the charter panel for a 10-year renewal. They do serve kindergarten through 8th grade. Their enrollment cap is 540 currently, and they do follow a traditional educational model. They do not have a digital learning plan. They never requested one. What they are requesting is to increase their cap by 108 students annually. That has been held up by the charter authorizing panel and will be considered next week because we needed to see evidence of a 35-day notice to the traditional district, and we wanted to know more information about the potential locations of where that school might expand. So that's all on the agenda for next week at the charter panel. So today you would be reviewing or not reviewing their charter renewal for 10 years, and then next month you will be looking at whether or not they'll have a cap increase.
Okay, and then a part of their agreement was also a biannual report, wasn't it?
Their requirement was to come back in 2 years with a report.
So that's automatic again, just like before, that we don't need to put that in our motion.
That's correct.
Okay.
And just for note, the charter panel or the state board can call a charter at any time. So we monitor very closely.
Okay. So, on your list, we are not looking at the enrollment cap. It would be just the first 1, 2, 3, 4 bullet points there would be what we would be considering in our motion, okay? Everybody clear on that? Okay, and so we see if we have any discussion on this one. Anyone online have a question or a comment? Okay. Anyone here have a question or a comment? Okay, so we are ready for a motion to either review or not review Exalt Academy.
I move to not review.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. D not to review. Have seconded by Ms. McFetridge. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Is there any new business? Okay, so we are to the report section. Do we want to wait and do that after lunch? Because I know you probably have people coming in. Or do we want to go on until 12?
I think we can keep going unless my team gives me a reason why we can't. Okay?
Everybody okay with continuing if they're on reports?
Okay, yep, we'll
Ms.
keep going.
Freno, let's make sure Ms. Freno's okay, and if she is, we'll go ahead.
You're welcome to go forward.
Okay, all right, so we'll go to about 12 if that's okay with everyone, all right? Anyone on the board have something that you would like to share or report? I'll check online first. Mr. Henderson? Dr. Moore?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Ms. Woods? Okay, anyone here? Oh, wait. Everybody stop. I forgot. I even have it written on my paper right here that says hard stop for the court reporter. And so, and you see how much I read? It's even, guys, it's even highlighted to do that, and I didn't do it anyway. So I apologize, Ms. McIntyre. We appreciate you filling in for Ms. Sharon, and we will stop now to give you time to regroup. But I bet everybody here would like to leave a break too. So let's go to 11:30. We'll start back at 11:30. Okay? All right. 9:30, so we're going to come back and I'll ask, because I'm not sure if I asked or didn't ask on reports, if anyone from the board had something that you would like to share this morning. Anyone on the board have something you want to share? Okay, if not, we're going to move to our Teacher of the Year report because Ms. Post really wants to make us all jealous this morning.
It's been a good month.
I know.
I kicked off with visiting Greenbrier, and I was able to speak at their first annual Panther Code Con event. It was for girls in coding. So I'll say this. I started off talking about all their opportunities for STEM careers as women, and then I subtly transitioned into advocating for the teaching profession as another great option. It was so good to be with those girls. They were excited. After I spoke, they were doing kind of like just a round robin of different events in classrooms. And I went into one, and they had brought over, this was middle school age girls, but they had brought over some of their senior high girls, and they were mentoring the younger ones. And it was just beautiful to watch. So that was an excellent event. And then Academy hosts this annual bike giveaway. And when I went to throw that first pitch at the Travelers game, I met someone from all of that work, and he called me up and he said, "Ms. Post, we're doing a bike giveaway. Would you like to come?" Yes. And this was around Christmas time. I said, "You're asking me if I want to be Santa." "Yes, I want to be Santa." So we went to Watson Elementary here in the Little Rock area, and the smiles on the kids' faces. I actually missed the media part of it because the kids were sitting in the cafeteria at the tables. And when you're out of the classroom on sabbatical and you see a bunch of kids, it's like magnetic. So I went and hung with the kids and missed the cameras, which is perfectly fine with me. But that was a really good event. Stacey McAdoo, former Teacher of the Year for Arkansas, has a podcast called A Mile in My Shoes, or A Mile in Your Shoes, I think. And I did that with her. It's not released yet, but it will be coming out if you want to listen to that. It's only about, well, however long it took us to walk the mile, 15, 20 minutes. Okay, and then to make you jealous, I just got back from Indianapolis. All of the Teachers of the Year were honored on the field at the college football playoff game, which was incredible. But even prior to that, we were there for a couple of days all together. It was kind of our last grand finale event. College Football Playoff Foundation has what they call the Extra Yard for Teachers. And earlier this year, they had gifted us a $100 gift card that we could then gift to someone else. So I was able to go give that away. This is with that same foundation. So they hosted a 5K for all of us, and I was worried about the cold weather, but I'll tell you what, I did really well in that cold weather. I actually jogged at least one of the 3 miles, I think. My son, the cross-country kid, was very proud of his mom. So we did the 5K together, and I'll tell you, everywhere that we went, I'm so proud of just the football industry or world as it is, because they could just be focusing on athletics, and they are elevating the teaching profession in a way that I've not seen. Everywhere that we went, people were saying, "Oh, it's the teachers, it's the teachers," and they would just start chanting for all of us, and we're walking through the hallways, walking down the sidewalks, everywhere, just being celebrated. So that was incredible. They had a really excellent PD session for us with an organization called Get Your Teach On that was just incredible. I don't know if you watched the game, but Natalie Grant sang the national anthem. She sang to all of us the day before in our PD session, and it was just so moving. And she was very intentional about saying, "I'm not trying to push my religion on you, but I think we could all use some encouragement right now in the middle of everything that we're going through with COVID." And so that really spoke to my heart. But the Get Your Teach On PD was so excellent and encouraging. All the Teachers of the Year were sitting in one kind of section of this room, but then the rest of the room was filled up with Indiana teachers that were there for it. And Sarah Brown Westling, who is the 2010 National Teacher of the Year, and now she's over CCSSO's Teacher of the Year program. She was sitting behind the Indiana teachers. And she said, I almost came over with y'all, but they were talking about you, so I kind of wanted to stay there and eavesdrop. And she said every time that a new speaker came or one of our own was being recognized, and we're all over there, you know, hooping it up, and we're excited. She said the Indiana teachers kept saying, we want to hang out with them. We want to be friends with them. So we had such a good time. Such a good time. In fact, I don't know if you've seen the TikTok going around right now, but I represented Arkansas well. We had the opportunity to throw a football to win $1,000 for education. Alabama was missing when this moment came. We were going in alphabetical order. Arizona was missing. I was up first. Yeah. So Arkansas was up to throw the first football. They gave me no practice throws. Even up to the moment that I walked up, and y'all, it was just 5 yards, but it felt like 50. I'll just say that. But when I walked up there, I'm thinking, am I gonna like granny shoot this? Am I gonna chest pass? Because I know basketball, but I don't know football. And I thought, no, I'm just gonna go for it. And I threw that football, and it went into that hole. And if you watch the TikTok, I got a little excited. I think my children might be embarrassed. I'm not sure if they're more proud or embarrassed, but it's going around right now. And then, of course, we were recognized on the field before the championship game. And that was, like I said, our last big hurrah. It was bittersweet. We kind of left the game at different times, so there wasn't like a big goodbye, but I feel like maybe that's for the best, because it definitely would have been tearful. That in-toy family has probably been the best part of this whole experience. Just to have rubbed shoulders with teachers from across the country who are equally passionate about education. So that's been such a blessing of this whole journey. And then lastly, I spoke yesterday at AAEA's Superintendent Symposium. And afterwards, I spoke about my platform. I told them about my journey to the classroom, but then I really wanted to advocate for the Teacher of the Year program and make sure that teachers in their districts are getting the same opportunity, you know, to at least apply for this experience or be nominated for it. But afterwards, I feel like it really resonated with them. A couple of superintendents told me I made them cry. One of them said, you made me cry 3 times. And then another one said, and I hadn't heard what had been spoken before, but she said, I wish that you could have heard it all, because what you said pulled everything together from the whole event. So I felt like that was kind of divine. And then lastly, a superintendent walked up and he said, how do I get a recording of this? Because my son is a teacher and this is his 2nd year and he's thinking about leaving the profession. And as he's telling me the story, his phone rings and he goes, well, there he is. And I said, give me that phone. So I answered the superintendent's phone and I said, hey, this is Susanna Post. I'm your Arkansas Teacher of the Year, and your dad's gonna send you my email and we're gonna have a chat because you're not leaving teaching. So that's been the last month. I will have boots on the ground in Arkansas for the rest of my year. So thank you.
Does anyone have a question or a comment from this post? I just wanted to tell you how proud we are of you, and I know you did represent us well, not just in the football throw, but all of the events. And I'm so happy that you got to interact with the other Teachers of the Year from around the nation, because that is one of the best parts. And I think it's the part that you grow the most from, because you hear other teachers having the same struggles and same interactions, and how are they meeting those challenges. And it's a great time. And so I'm glad the pandemic did not deprive you of that, because it is great. And I want to thank you. And then this is the time of the year that you start thinking about what's next. So we'll support you in prayer, and you'll have some great things to go from here. All right, I think we're to the, I turned my thing on. There it is. Commissioner's report.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. I've got a number of things I want to go over with you just to make sure you are updated on. And the first one I think that would be of interest is just to kind of tell you that the adequacy review process by the General Assembly has begun. They had meetings last week that kicked off that process, and that will go until sometime in the fall, probably October. Under statute, the committees are supposed to issue a report on adequacy and provide recommendations to the Senate pro tem and to the Speaker of the House and the Governor by November 1. The department will be very engaged in that process, and we'll keep you posted. We will update you and provide links to the information so that you can be aware of what's being discussed as well. I also want to give you an update. As you know, this week, last week, but this week even more intensely, we've had a number of modifications to on-site instruction, districts employing their AMI days. So I asked Kimberly to pull together, because she gets requests every day from the press on the day-to-day shifts and modifications. But I thought I'd give you a breakdown of what we've seen since January 1st through about 3:30 yesterday. There have been 148 modifications to instruction, and 76% of those have been district-wide. So that's, especially this week, what we're seeing, a number of districts are either Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or Thursday, Friday, and then many districts are off on Monday for the King holiday. So using those 5 to 6 days to provide that break to hopefully interrupt the transmission cycle that they're experiencing in their districts. So 76% of those are district-wide. About 5% are school-wide, and around 18% are at a grade level. So, not their entire school doesn't require the shift. They are able to cover the other grades or buildings with the staff that they have. And that's usually the driving force, is the availability of staff, bus drivers, cafeteria workers. And comparing that to last January 1st through the 12th, coming back from the Christmas break, we saw 48 modifications to instruction. For those, 29 of those were COVID related and 19 were weather related. For this year, 25 of the shifts were weather related. So we had that little surprise storm that went through northeast Arkansas. We had a number of districts that had to close for a couple of days because of that, and employed AMI to continue to provide learning opportunities for their students. And then many of you have probably seen this, that for the first semester of this year, for 2022, we had 54 modifications, and compared to the first semester of 2021, where there were 411. All right, so this, as COVID is cycling through our communities and our state, we are seeing different levels of impact at different times based on those cycles. A reminder that this year there's not an emergency order in place. The governor, in one of his press conference, in response to a question about that, when he was asked by a reporter, should we have an emergency order in place, his answer was that emergency orders are put in place when there needs to be some emergency power authorized from the executive branch, and we're not in that type of situation currently. Since we do not have an emergency order, there are not blanket waivers from statutes or rules or standards like we had in the 21-22 school year. That's why we have the AMI in place. Districts have the built-in makeup days in their calendar, and there are other methods to deal with time missed if they go over their 10 AMI day allotment. So I'll stop there and see if anyone has any questions about the COVID impact or modifications.
Anyone online have a question? Okay. Anyone here?
All right. Then I want to give you an update on the ESSER funding. And do we have those slides ready to pull up?
These are on the agenda.
While we're pulling that up, let me give you an update on our state assessment. Hope Worsham has been leading internal and external groups through that process. As we communicated to you before, the ACT Aspire will be available to us for the spring of this year and the spring of 23. So we'll have 2 more years of ACT Aspire testing. We are in the process of the RFP process is ongoing right now to identify a provider for the next state assessment. And that will be something that comes to you as the state board to adopt. And we anticipate February to be the meeting where that will come to you for adoption. Then at that time, Hope or Stacey or Dr. Pride, someone will be kind of giving you the timeline of when we expect the PD, when we expect the rollout, all those things that are very important so our teachers and school leaders know what that next assessment is going to require of them. So just give you a brief update on that. And now we have let me ask if there are any questions on that, on the assessment. A lot more information to come on that, hopefully next month. Okay, so let me give you an update on ESSER, and thank you, Anthony, for that, and Morgan. I can barely see her, but I see her over there. So moving to the next slide, I won't spend a lot of time here, but just briefly, CARES Act, that was the first ESSER funds that came from the CARES Act, and that was for immediate relief. ESSER 2 was from that next congressional aid package that was passed. That was really to help with recovery from COVID. And then the American Recovery Plan, ARP ESSER, was to sustain in-person learning and maximize the opportunities and recover from the lost learning time that we experienced. In the next slide, just to remind what the very broad uses for the ESSER funds are. For preventing, preparing for, and responding to COVID-19, these expenses must be reasonable and necessary, and there has to be some connection to COVID. All right, let's move on to the next slide. This is what we've talked about before for what does it mean to prevent, prepare for, and respond to. And then in the next slide, there's been ongoing clarification of what exactly can these funds be used for. In the early interpretation of the law, it was very specific, and there had to be what we had interpreted as a more direct tie to COVID. Now that tie can be a little more indirect, is I think a good way to say it. Not just at least for especially ESSER 3, not only addressing the impact of the lost instructional time, but how do we come out of the pandemic better and stronger than we were pre-pandemic. All right, next slide. And this was pulled, directly from the Federal Department of Education website, where it discusses that and emphasizes that emerging stronger from the pandemic and how these funds can be used to do so. Let's move to the next slide. That's the broad categories. These have not changed. So we've talked about this one before. What I want to give you now with the next slide is kind of where we stand with the overall picture. So the total allocations for our schools was $1.76 billion. And at this point we have, and this is for all 3 of these ESSER packages. We are now have total expenditures of $561 million. That's as of about a month ago. These reports are lagging reports, so we don't have real-time numbers, but this is the most recent update that we have for you. So about 32% of the funds have been distributed and spent. Also remind you, this is reimbursement, so we haven't just sent funds out to districts for them to hold in their accounts. They spend the money, they submit to us for the reimbursements, and then we disperse those funds accordingly. All right, next slide. shows you what we have from ESSER 1. We have, districts have spent 97% of those funds, with a remaining balance of $3.3 million. And we certainly are working with districts to make sure they spend their allotment. And this, they can use this for PPE. They used a lot of this for technology. That was that first round. And then the next slide, for ESSER 2, we have spent almost 66% of those funds. And then for ARP ESSER, as you see, there is less than 10% of those funds have been spent in that category, and the remaining balance is over $1 billion. Okay, here's the thing that's important. The expectation is that these funds are to be spent over a 3-year span to address the needs, because the impact of COVID is not going to, we're not going to recover from that immediately. I think we've all very clearly seen that now. So we want districts to have good plans. They have to update their plans every 6 months on safe reopening. We're reminding superintendents on a regular basis that when they make changes to their plan, their spending plan, their safe operation plans, all those changes need to have input from their community, input from their patrons, their teachers, their parents, their students, their community at large. They need to have a process in place for getting that feedback and then documenting that and updating their plan on their website. We're asking them, when you update it, to date, so that we know when the update has been made. 6 months is the requirement, but it is not. If you need to update your plan more frequently than 6 months, then that is what we need you to do. So that's the communication that we've been providing to them. And then the next slide gives you under the broad categories, and we'll make sure, Ivy, did you say this was posted on the agenda at this point? Okay. I need to refresh my page, but you have this available to you. It's a little hard to read here, but those very broad categories of facilities, food security, student support, systemic procedures, and technology. You can see how these funds, the expenditure of these funds so far break down, and those colors in that donut are expected to change over time. Obviously, technology was a very significant portion of that first round and the second round of funding. Maybe less so this time, but we may see other, in those categories, other components of that change over time, and we expect them to change over time. All right, the next slide is just a map that gives you the total fund allocation, 1.94 billion. That includes the state set-aside funding. And then the next slide, we break down in broad categories how we are spending those funds. For ESSER 1, our state set-aside was about 12.9 million. ESSER 2 was 55.8 million. And under the American Rescue Plan, it's 125 million. Total about $194 million. That's the state set aside that we, at the department level, have the option to spend in broader support for the statewide needs that we see out there. And this chart provides you a brief summary of how we are spending those funds in those broad categories that we have identified that align with our mission and vision and strategic plan. So the departments, and it's not just DESE, this goes across all the divisions of the Department of Education. So we're looking to see how we can leverage the outreach, leverage the resources that the State Library has, or the Martin Luther King Commission has, or many of these other parts of the department, so that we can get the maximum impact for these funds. Obviously, foundational literacy is a significant component. Our Rise Arkansas initiative, what do we need to do to make sure we stay the course with what we started in 2017? The pathways to fulfilling career and life, that's where we look at the CTE options, not just for those students that are in our K-12 system, but also how can we reach out beyond the K-12 system into higher ed, post-secondary, or the state library. If you see Learning Express, that is an opportunity for any Arkansan to access a number of learning options and test prep options if they're getting ready to take like the GRE or the LSAT, or there may be things on the Learning Express that would help Arkansans that are not part of the K-12 system. Serving the needs of the whole learner, that one's important. That reflects where we partnered with the Arkansas Out of School Network for those out of school time grants. All of these we can provide more detail if you would like for them. The expansion of our Professional Learning Communities Initiative to create more of a regional approach and a statewide approach with that. Our work on inclusive practices for our students with special needs. Building capacity of our teachers to teach in a digital platform and to teach special education, to try to get more of those endorsements out there so we have more qualified teachers available to be in those classrooms. And then last night we joined with the Martin Luther King Jr. Commission in rolling out as part of their King Week celebration. And Dr. Hill was there. I was backstage, Dr. Hill. I couldn't hear exactly everything you were saying, but I know you started preaching there for a little bit. But rolling that out for youth summits, where we will be supporting those across the state. And then under equipping staff and strengthening our systems, support that we provided, whether it be our Ready for Learning platform, the COVID emergency leave that we provided in the last school year, support for high quality instructional materials, because as we have heard from teachers, the feedback we've heard before the pandemic was we need support with knowing where we can access high quality instructional materials. This is not a new program, so I just can't emphasize that enough, that it's not a new program. It is responding to the needs as identified by our teachers and has been exacerbated by the COVID pandemic. And then acceleration, leveraging our communities of practice, our statewide guiding coalition, and using the concepts of professional learning communities to identify how can we accelerate the impact on students in addressing the lost learning time. And then the other category where the things that we have provided, the PPE stockpile, which has come in very handy at different times as supply chain issues have caused districts to have problems getting what they need. We've been able to meet the needs there. Just this week, we have a new charter school, Windsong Charter School. They did not exist the first round of all the support went out. And Ms. Timmons called and said, you know what, we weren't in on that. Do you have anything you can help us? And we were able to get materials for them, PPE, masks, sanitizing wipes, hand sanitizer, those things in their hands in a school that did not have access to it readily. We are, much of the time of the department, as you can imagine, our response to COVID is consuming most of our time. I want to communicate this to you today. We felt like so that we could do a better job of aligning our response in how do we come out of the pandemic stronger to what we've worked on in establishing as our strategic plan, so that these things are embedded and the work we're doing is embedded in the overall goals of our agency. We feel like we have a very strong response to COVID. We know teachers and principals and superintendents and support staff at the school level are facing an unbelievable burden. And I just want you to know our team is sharing that burden as well. We have folks that are not immune to this because we have family members in the schools, we have kids that are students in the schools. You talk about this team, and they step up on a daily, on an hourly basis to do everything they can. And I just want to take an opportunity to brag on them. wherever they are in this agency, whether they indirect or whether they're directly involved in whether it's learning services or CTE or finance, they have a impact on a kid in the classroom somewhere in the state of Arkansas. And I want to express my thanks to their dedication working through all the challenges that we face here. And with that, I'll stop on this topic and see if there are any questions.
Anyone online have a question?
I do, yes. Thank you for giving us an update on this. As in thinking about the learning loss that is being continued this year with students in and out, continued, and teachers in and out, unfortunately, I think again to this next summer is another crucial time to provide more instruction for students. And I know we've talked about this all the time, but there's no requirement for schools to offer summer school, is there?
Who wants to come talk about that? Deb, you want to come talk about that?
Deborah Kaufman. There is a requirement that 20%, a minimum of 20% of ARP ESSER funds be utilized to address student learning loss. So it depends on what the school district put into their ARP ESSER plan that they would need to utilize. But as Secretary Key has said, we need to come out better on the other side of this pandemic, or at the end of these funds. We need to be better. So our school districts are really thinking about any methodology they can use: after school, weekends, summer school, before school, lots of interventions to ensure that students are achieving and addressing any learning loss. So is it a requirement? No. Is it advised? Yes.
And Dr. Moore, I think we can, and Deb, tell me if I'm wrong here, if thinking of this in terms of how districts can spend their Title I funds, the state cannot direct them on how specifically to spend that, and that's the same, I guess, restriction we have with the ESSER fund programs, is that the state agencies cannot tell them how they have to spend their funds. We have to give them the broad categories, but there's wide flexibility within the districts of how they identify what to do to meet these needs.
Any
Okay,
questions?
thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Any questions here?
And please, anytime you have a question, or if someone asks you a question, sends you a Facebook post, sends you anything, please let us be a resource for you to help make sure the right information is getting out there. It's very critical that the facts, was it a lie gets halfway around the world before the truth gets its pants on? There's a lot of truth to that old adage, and we want to make sure we are giving you the tools to provide accurate information.
Let me take a second and echo that, because I know board members, you're like I am, you get emails from parents and teachers and different ones asking questions on issues, and sometimes before I will answer an email, I will shoot an email to Gina or Ms. Mundell, the communication person, and they will help me make sure that I have accurate information before I answer that email, and and they will help me with the wording of the email and that sort of thing. So they are a resource, and it has helped me tremendously. So take advantage of them. I don't mean like that. Don't take advantage of them, but ask them. They are very willing to help whenever you ask. So feel free to contact them.
And the last item is not a report necessarily, but just to make sure you have awareness, and Carly can speak to this, or Ivy can speak to this if you have questions about it. But the NCTQ State of the States report, that is a report that is issued every year, and it talks about the teacher supply and demand and state by state data, and would invite either of those ladies to talk about that if they have anything specific they want to point out. But really that report is there for your benefit to review and if you have questions about it.
Does anyone have a question on the teacher supply and demand report?
I was just going to comment and say it was very helpful, and I appreciate you adding it in. So thank you.
Anyone else?
That concludes my report, Madam Chair.
Okay, I think we're to the quarterly reports, and so it is lunchtime. So why don't we stop here and we'll come back after lunch and do the quarterly reports. Ms. Smith is going to bring that information in, and so I think we will break for lunch until 1 o'clock. Okay? Anthony, are y'all ready? Okay. I know we got back a little bit late from lunch, so I hope y'all will not hold it against us, but I think we're ready to get started. We're to the quarterly reports for districts under state authority. Ms. Smith. Ms. Smith, you'd asked me earlier about a question, and we don't have anybody that's going to have a question.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you. I'll let them know. All right, so on Stacey Smith, on the agenda you had legislative reports uploaded for Earl School District, Lee County School District, and Palm Bluff School District. You also had another agenda item on there for Little Rock School District that you had reports for. Now, Little Rock's report is a little bit different than the other three because they're no longer under state authority, but because they were released, there is a year that they continue to report to you their progress. So that was their report that they provided. Some things I just want to highlight with Earl, and I do have John Hoy on the Zoom. John works for the Office of Coordinated Support and Service. He is an assistant state superintendent who is in Earl School District 3 to 4 days a week working there. So he can answer specific questions if you have about Earl. Right now, I know there's lots of conversation about AMI days or remote learning. Earl School District this year has only taken 2 AMI days, and they both have been weather related. Okay, so they have not pivoted to remote for their AMI due to COVID. They do follow and do continuous surveys with their staff and their students, and they do adhere to masking policies there and sanitation and cleaning. And so trying to keep kids in school is a priority. They were able to leverage some of their ESSER funds. the main thing with Earl School District was their finances and trying to get the finances piece where they're a stable, independent district and we're not having to look at that piece of it. They did maintain their enrollment from last year to this year, and those are huge financial pieces for districts that size. So continuing to kind of have those conversations. Tracy Webb, who works for the Department of Ed, and she is our fiscal person that directly works with districts in fiscal distress. She meets weekly with the superintendent, goes over budgeting and finances. I do just want to praise the superintendent for taking an active role in really trying to understand and learn school district finance. It's very, very complex. And she's taken an active role making sure she understands that. There is a disconnect sometimes with understanding what you can use different funds for with the community. You know, when you see your basketball team and they're packing sack lunches and other basketball teams from other districts are going out to eat, you know, when, you know, gate sales and ticket sales, you know, hit all those things. And so when you have a district that's under fiscal distress and you don't have additional funding and opportunities, they did have negative account balances when they were put in fiscal distress for misuse of funds or spending funds wrong from federal accounts. You couldn't do sports things with federal funds, and they did. And so that's kind of what dug them in a hole. And so trying to get out of that and make sure that the community understands, that's a piece we're continuing to strive for. And Tish is trying to do better monthly meetings as far as really updating her community advisory group on finance. So that's huge.
Are they current on their payments to the state?
Yes, yes. If we get tight one, that's the bill we'll skip.
That's what?
If for some reason so last year when we weren't current on those payments to the state was when we had really tight months and we had to prioritize.
You gave them a little deferral?
We gave them grace.
Yeah.
Yes, but yes, they're current. The ESSER funds have been a big thing for this district. We've been able to purchase buses and improve air quality with buses using ESSER funds and get out of a lease that we had from our operating funds. But we were able to improve air quality, space kids out, and own buses versus being in a lease. So there are things like that we've been able to do to position the district in a little bit better place.
They have publicly issued debt, right?
Yes.
And they're...
Yes. So there are big pieces we're still working on.
Yeah.
Academics. One of the things that we had noticed as we were doing, we focus a lot on literacy, especially in the primary grades and the early grades, and trying to make sure we've got the right curriculum and the right people trained. But sometimes we're not looking at every subject. And so this year when we really started doing some classroom walkthroughs and some of our other subjects, we just noticed, wait a second, these history books seem out of date. Like, what year did this come from? And so we went through this year and did an audit of all their curriculum and all the content and trying to improve curriculum resources for teachers in all those subjects. Having certified staff, they face the same issues as a lot of the other districts that you're hearing from, and looking at their retention and recruitment plans and the things that they're doing to try to maintain and keep their teachers is also a challenge. Mr. Hoy, I see that you're on the Zoom. Is there anything you want to add about Earl?
No, ma'am. I hope you can hear me, but no, I think you've covered all the bases, Ms. Smith.
Well, we sure do appreciate the work that you do out there, Mr. Hoy.
Thank you.
Does the board have any questions for Mr. Hoy or for me about Earl?
Any questions about Earl?
Okay. The next, thank you, John. The next legislative report I have for you is Lee County. Of course, you heard from Ms. Murdoch earlier. They currently have used 4 AMI days, and that's going on right now for remote instruction due to COVID. And it's mainly it's students and it's staff, but they have had an outbreak within their staff, and that's really caused them to have not enough staff to cover classes. And so they're currently in the midst of using AMI days, and the plan is to return on Tuesday. They're off on Monday. So you'll be seeing them come back in. One thing that I was very proud of with Lee County and Pine Bluff in their AMI days for remote instruction, they also planned with their administration on how they're monitoring for quality instruction. And so you have administrators who are zooming in or popping into those classes that are online and doing walkthroughs online and doing observations online to make sure that we are continuing to have high quality instruction, which is the expectation when you use an AMI day. So they plan that ahead of time. And so proud of that. Sheila Whitlow, who is on the Zoom, works for my staff. She's an assistant state superintendent. She was in the district yesterday. She was with the principal while they were and checking in on people while they were doing their Zooms and for support. Sheila, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, ma'am, I just commending them for that, for sure.
Do you guys have any questions about the report specifically for Lee County?
Any questions on Lee County?
No. Stacey,
Yes.
What is it called, Lee Academy? Is a private school still there in
Yes, sir.
Mariana?
Yes. They also regularly meet with our finance office. The difference between Lee County and their fiscal services that we provide to them is we've actually done contracted support with APSRC. And so they work closely with Lee County and kind of manage that day-to-day operations. We're looking at how advantageous that is, especially for smaller districts when you have that capacity piece because school finance is so difficult. You can't just necessarily hire somebody the next day that understands it if you lose someone. So that's been a big help, and we have created a partnership with them where our staff visits frequently with them as well. Okay, and that moves us to Pine Bluff. And for Pine Bluff, I actually have a presentation for you today. Last month, Ms. Wright, and I see that they're back today, I'm glad you guys are here, had talked to you about some comments, and we said that we would address some of those this month. Also, I know there had some questions we have new board members that weren't here last year when the decision made what to annex. And so I kind of want to, I'm not going to rehash the hearings and all that, but I am going to walk through some big items and some decision points and kind of talk to us where we are. Barbara Warren is on the Zoom, and she has given me permission to say this, but she had complete knee replacement over the holiday break. And so she is on the Zoom, and she'll be answering some questions and participating in the presentation. So you guys should see Barbara over there too, to make sure that she can. All right. So kind of walking you through, there's been a long history with the Dollarway School District and the State Department, okay? So really back in 2006, Alzheimer's School District was consolidated with Dollarway. During 2010 to 2012, there was previous state action due to standards for accreditation violations. You good? Okay. Reconstituted in June of 2012. In 2014, after no violations for 2 years, the district was removed from state control and returned. Okay. During that time, the Alzheimer campus closed, and those students moved to the Dollarway schools. Let's see if they can. Okay, I can't see my top. I'm depending on you. In December of 2015, they were placed back under state authority for academic distress. And academic distress was our old rules, okay? But they were placed for academic distress. In April of 2016, they were classified as a school district in fiscal distress, so they had both. In 2017 is when we updated our rules and moved away from the old academic distress. However, in December of 2020, this state board voted to annex Dollarway with the Pine Bluff School District, and the official annexation started this past summer, July 1, 2021. So I'm going to walk you through some of those decision points and just kind of give you some reminders of things that had happened. Okay, it's not letting me scroll anymore. Okay, there we go. Do you remember this one? This colored flow chart that we used when we were trying to determine. The first one on the top was about did Dollarway meet the academic level 5 support? That second tier was, did they meet the exit criteria for fiscal? And the decision points that the board was going to have to make based on that. And so we spent a lot of time talking about what the 4 options were. The 2 that came really to the top were the consideration of annexation and consolidation. During this time, we took all the criteria for level 5 state authority, and we actually remember we scored it on a rating scale and had an overall rating. So we did that not only for the level 5 indicators, but we also did that for their fiscal distress pieces as well. So we took and we scored every single one of those, and in the end had an overall average. So when it was all said and done, looking at all the ratings, having all the different testimony, feedback, it was determined that they did not meet their fiscal distress exit criteria. Lots of conversation about when we were getting some community feedback about whether or not they could remain for another year, and law does not allow that. So the board then was faced back to the chart. It was determined that purple category, that they did not meet the exit criteria for fiscal. Okay, they continued to have that declining enrollment and declining balance, and that the district then had to make this board had to make a decision on annexation or consolidation or reconstitution. So again, the 2 that really were where we spent the most time, we did have scenarios and charts for all 4 options. Again, I'm walking you quickly through because I'm not going to rehash meetings from past. I just want to try to bring things up to you that you haven't seen in a while. The conversation around annexation, this was a sheet that we worked with WestEd on, and these were considerations for the board as they were trying to make their decisions. Which school district would be the receiving district? That would be Pine Bluff. So that middle column is kind of what I'm looking at right now for you guys. On what date would this occur? It would occur on July 1 with a 1 to 2 year transition of emerging schools. What would be the local board structure? The state would resume authority if under Pine Bluff, because we'd be underneath the Pine Bluff timeline because Pine Bluff was also under state authority. That's a big point in the decision that the board used in making their decision. D, finances. So the district would receive the incentive funding for annexation, which they did receive, and both districts could benefit from that combination, and revenue from the casino and the millage rates would remain the same. Savings could be realized if we closed and merged schools. Now that was probably a point that had people really anxious because Dollarway did not want to close, and we made the decision not to close those schools at the times. All the Dollarway campuses are still open. Let's see, consolidation. So again, that middle column, Pine Bluff School District was the district that we would consider for consolidation. One point that was really considered and a reason not to consolidate was under annexation, Dollarway becomes part of Pine Bluff. Under consolidation, both districts are no longer, and they start a new district. Okay? So they would have consolidated with Pine Bluff, but they would have become one brand new district. What was the date of that? It would have been July 1st, but it would also have been a 1 to 2 year transition timeline, even under the consolidation piece. And going back to local control and not being under state authority. But there would have definitely had to have been a transition time because Pine Bluff did not have a board at the time. And the first election that could have occurred could have been this November, okay? The structure, had they consolidated, they would have had to elect a new board and the representation from the different areas, okay? So I say all that to say all that about board zones and all those pieces is currently being worked right now. okay, because of the census and legislation. So new board zones for the Pine Bluff, Dollarway, Altheimer area are currently being mapped out. And the community will be able to give feedback on those in the coming months. And we'll have to establish what those board zones are. So those were, as far as financial incentives, some of those things are about the same thing that you saw with annexation. Staffing changes. Under state, the state would still appoint the superintendent under consolidation. Once they elected their board, they would take over that because they would no longer be under state authority. So again, these were kind of the two things that rose up to the board as far as trying to make a decision about which one. At the time, the Department of Education did not feel like that Pine Bluff School District was ready to be released from state authority. They were right in the middle of it. They themselves were having they needed a lot of support. They did not have a board, so if we would have consolidated, we would still be in this very state-directed role right now. So again, kind of comparing the two between annexation and consolidations, some of the things are very similar as far as start dates, implementation time zone, the authority piece versus electing a new board and when that could have been put in place versus the state still directing. But other pieces are still pretty similar there, okay? The decision that this board made was annexation, okay? So now I'm gonna kind of walk you through where we currently are. And Barbara, I know you're on with me. Can you hear me? I wanna make sure we can hear you.
Yes, I can hear you. Can y'all hear me?
We can hear you very well.
Excellent.
Just jump in when you feel like you need to jump in, okay?
Absolutely.
On this one with the Pine Bluff School District, we currently have an enrollment of 3,379. Okay, part of the reason that Pine Bluff was also in fiscal distress was their declining enrollment. So pulling the districts together, trying to stabilize what we have, and looking at our buildings and the number of kids in those buildings. So we currently right now have 2 high schools, 2 middle schools, 4 elementary schools, and here is the big change that was made this last year is the pre-K is all in one building. So Dollarway kids that were in preschool at the Matthews Elementary, they took all the Pine Bluff pre-Ks and the Dollarway pre-K and they put them in one of their building campuses. Barbara, do you want to talk anything about climate and culture and just the buildings themselves?
I do. I definitely want to say hello to the State Board and Secretary Key and thanks Ms. Stacey Smith for the opportunity. One of the things that we try to be very intentional about is when do you connect these children? When do you connect the staff? And Secretary Key made it really clear that we would have the opportunity to bring the district together. And so you all gave us an opportunity by making certain that each of the buildings would remain open to be, again, intentional about that. And so as we take a look, pre-K, very simple, very needed, help with efficiencies fiscally, and then also, of course, for staff. But keeping the other buildings open was quite a benefit. And we really appreciate that opportunity to do that. And I'd like to continue to move in that purposeful, intentional way to make certain that the community is as comfortable as it can be and that our students are positioned that they can be successful with whoever they're sitting beside and that we can prepare the community as we go.
Thank you. This next slide right here kind of talks about some clarifications I wanted to make based on previous comments. So all employees are Pine Bluff school employees. We no longer have Dollarway employees and Pine Bluff employees. Everybody is Pine Bluff. It's the same teacher and classified pay scale. There's no differentiation between if you were at Pine Bluff or if you were at Dollarway. You fall under the same pay scale and same personnel policies. Barbara, do you want to talk about some of the opportunities as far as pay increase for the teachers that did come from Dollarway?
I would. So before there was even the update for the 2021, 21, 22 salary schedule, it brought dollar way in, making the teacher salary scale at $500 more. And so then there's that benefit, but we also were really blessed to be able to raise our teacher scale to $900 more. So our beginning teacher scale is $36,900. Everybody received a bump and a benefit. I really didn't think it good, especially for culture, for dollar way to just come in and benefit in some shape, form, or fashion fiscally. And of course, we know what we are and what we need to do with recruitment and retention. It was as good for us to do what we could and that everybody feels some benefit. So everybody received some increase. And I'll even say that impacted the salary schedule in other ways as well. Our paraeducators, we broke it down to multiple tiers to give that incentive and opportunity for our paras. You know, you come in and you take the para test, then that puts you up a tier. You have your 60 hours, that puts you up a tier. And so we tried to make some distinctions. We did have some situations where, and I'm gonna use bus drivers for an example, where we brought everybody in and bumped them to the next step. So there may have been questions about how that happened, but it was the fairest, best thing to do. We are going to, of course, assess that as some people are concerned about experience, and that's among classified as well. There were things that happened some years ago in Pine Bluff that really do need to be addressed. And so to balance out, to get started July 1, we bumped everybody to the next step as they should have been. Even though at one point in Palmer School District, they were frozen. So we didn't mess with any of that. But next year, we're gonna make some adjustments so that everybody's where they need to be. But we had to have a baseline this year. And when we talk about same personnel policy, every school and every entity by law, just as it states it, is represented. And so you have representation across the district. I had an opportunity before the break to talk to the Personnel Policy Committee, and I shared with them that, you know, we're gonna have a good relationship, and we're gonna have no relationship. And because it's just that simple. We are all adults who love children, and our Personnel Policy Committees work very well, I feel, with me. They reach out to me, sometimes they text, we do whatever we've got to do. And I was happy that we had representation throughout. I needed to ask them to work on some specific things. In this particular year, Secretary Key, he approved some policies that were a little more, I'm gonna say staff friendly, that I actually recommended. So I'm looking forward to personnel policy, doing some things together to not only update the policies, but also take a look at some of those things that we actually could do that would benefit staff more. So personnel policy is very important, and there's the one personnel policy committee for classified, and then also for certified. And as Ms. Smith talked about the consolidated budget, it was quite a big task, but between the Department of Ed, our business office, and really people throughout the district who supported it, July 1, we were working under a consolidated budget.
One other clarification I want to make too is Pine Bluff School District is still considered under fiscal distress. They, in previous years, had numerous audits and audit findings. They also had a declining balance, so our office works very closely with them. But that's an area we're making strides in. She talks about the pay increase and some of those pieces, but we also, we're very efficient with our staffing. And when you looked at Dollarway staff pushing in to Pine Bluff staff, when we had positions that were unfilled or we had staffing that we lost just because they left, we were able to do that without having to hire a lot of people, and there was savings in that area as well. Consolidated positions and services. By annexing the district, you were able to have one superintendent with one central office staff, one special education director for the district, one business manager, transportation director, facilities and maintenance director, GT director, food services contracts became one. Educational contracts became one. So before you would have an educational contract over here with Dollarway, one over here. Pulling it together was opportunities for cost savings there. Shared staff between buildings. And again, that consolidation at the pre-K center and having that emphasis there for all of our pre-K kids. Those were just some of the things that have happened in 6 months with COVID. I think we keep forgetting that it's a lot. Now, I can't say, I'm not going to stand here and tell you that it's been perfect and that every consolidation, especially in the budget and the finance and bringing two totally different operating codes and systems together and people and personnel, we've messed up. Forgive us, but they're making progress. And Barbara, do you want to comment on that? I know you put several things in place to streamline some of that.
Yes, you said it well, but we got right a whole lot more than made mistakes. And when you do something like this and it's never been done, you need a lot of support. And so I'm very proud of our business office, those teams, and the persons who are tied directly to finance for each of the buildings and each of the departments. Everybody's really worked hard. I mean, it's been a learning curve for us all. And so it's gone well. There's even audit data that shows how we have really, in short order, improved our processes and improved really our stewardship. And so it's been super. Something that's been hard, I'll make as an example of consolidating positions and services. Because of our numbers at Robert Moorhead, which was in the Dollarway School District, and then Dollarway High School, we have treated them, supported them with just one principal. And so the numbers supported that. And a fine principal, I must say. And that has its challenges, but again, efficiencies were important, and keeping the buildings open was also important. So we've leaned in to do whatever we've needed to do, be it to share staff across the district in very new ways, from staff members who may traditionally have been Pine Bluff to Dollarway. Whatever we've been able to do, we've done. We've saved a lot of money with these consolidated positions and services, and we have learned a lot more about one another in the collaborations that this has caused.
Yeah, and staff, there was some staff from Dollarway that was given the opportunity to apply for other positions or repurposed in different ways. So lots of work went into that. But I think they've made some really great strides in that area. And even Ms. Warren and I'm not sure, Ms. Warren, how many times you and I had Zooms over positions and people and where they were going to be and who was doing what, and lots and lots of work in that, but very proud of the work they did. So this brings us to this, which is, I think, the most important thing we're going to look at today. And I've got it in the next few slides where I've made it where it's a little bit bigger so you can see it. Kind of mapped out 5 years for Pine Bluff School District. What we need to be thinking about when, so that we're not getting at year 5 going, what are we doing? All right, so you can see there it's all mapped out for you. I want to start with this section. So in November 2018 is when the Pine Bluff School District was placed in fiscal distress and level 5 support. That first year there was focus on reduction in force and really a lot of work around literacy audits and support around literacy. That was a mid-year takeover. Dr. Owa was placed as superintendent mid-year. The second year, 1920, Dr. Owa was the superintendent. They were in fiscal distress. We had from that year before, we had numerous audit findings that we were working on. They had corrective action plans, really going in with a large support staff for, in fact, that year in 1920 had a lot of issues with professional development where our staff was going in to lead professional development and we were getting a lot of resistance. And so how do you trying to create relationships so that we're effective in what we're trying to accomplish there. started deep into professional learning communities, getting really into the RISE professional development, and again, continuing to do those curriculum audits. COVID hit in March. So that was just a year and a half. Last year, Barbara Warren was appointed the superintendent of both Dollarway and Pine Bluff. That happened during COVID. Large percentages of the students at both those schools, for safety reasons, did virtual instruction or remote instruction. They had very strict protocols in Pine Bluff for safety, as far as transitions and things like that. They had their fiscal corrective action plan from the previous years that they were working on. Had their, again, huge focuses on literacy PD. Lots of support from the Office of Coordinated State Support was continuing their work around professional learning communities. That was also, the hearings were happening here in December about annexation. So you have the superintendent doing 2 separate districts, hearings going on about what our final decision's gonna be. All this was happening during the year of COVID. Desi was the board. So now that brings us to 21-22. Barbara Warren is the superintendent. So this is her second year as Pine Bluff superintendent. The official annexation occurred this last summer, July 1. So we're 6 months in. We had a clean fiscal audit from the work from last year. It wasn't perfect. So when I say clean, Barbara tells me that's giving them too much credit, because there was some pieces, but it was pretty clean. It was a lot of work done, and I give Cindy Smith, I give Donna from our team, Sheila, who was there last year, Barbara Warren and her team, Jeremy from before, with credit for getting that. Okay, so much improved fiscal audit. So we're heading in the right direction. And because of the annexation, we now are not seeing the decline, the budgeting piece. We're starting to see all those pieces stabilize a little bit. So the picture of being able to be released from fiscal distress in the next year is a real conversation we can start having. Okay, we've gotten this fiscal audit, probably going to wait till we get the next one, make sure we have another one, and then that can be something that's talked about. Another thing that Barbara had started working on, and again, this started in November of 21, we annexed July 1. This is something we probably would have liked to have started in August, this next part, as far as a community advisory committee. But if you remember, right at the start of school year, what were we doing? You were reviewing digital learning plans because COVID had surged again. And that was pivoting everybody. That delayed us. So she didn't get the community advisory committee formed until November. And that committee's job is to establish the strategic plan. And this is something we talked a lot about last year, was painting the vision for what's next to Pine Bluff. Where do we want to go? And we can't do that without the community's input. This spring, the new board zones, so because you've got Dollarway, you've got Alzheimer, you've got Pine Bluff, you have new board zones have been drawn out. They've got 3 different options that Ms. Warren has that she's going to take to the public to get feedback on, wanting to make sure that all the different areas and communities within these regions feel representation. And so hopefully by this spring, we will have established what the new board zones are. So that's big when the community is asking, when do we get to go back to local control and how are we going to be represented? Getting these board zones, they have to be established. Whether we consolidated or we annexed, no local board could have been done until this was done. So those maps are drawn out. They'll start getting community feedback on those pretty quickly. Barbara, I'm going to let you talk about engagement in the community.
Okay. One of the things that we've known we can work on or need to work on is communication and engagement. And this year we did put in place a new family and community engagement coordinator, Ms. Kim West, and she has a 2-man team and literally 2 gentlemen who have transformed really the look of how we share and communicate. And so I hope some of you have seen our newsletters. We tease because they're more like news magazines, but bursting with the wonderful things that are going on in the district, and even highlighting our staff members, but also highlighting community stakeholders who are doing kind, wonderful things for the district. So I hope you get an opportunity to see that. But they are key in helping us with our engagement. And I just want to highlight for you that just as Ms. Smith was saying, we wanted to reach out and hear and have voices to help us with the work. And so we've established a parent advisory committee. We have a very clear-cut teacher advisory committee, had some excellent conversations, just in December even, and they were very excited about some of the next steps. Wellness is a huge focus. Matter of fact, each of these committees, especially teacher and student, talked about wellness and mental health. So our student advisory committee, actually 3 groups, elementary, middle, and high school. And the community advisory committee that I'll speak a little bit more about in a second, but I'm a part of each of these advisory committees. And you should just see the students when they come in. And they're so grateful for the snacks, just whatever it takes. And they have had some phenomenal feedback. And they understand that they're the ambassadors who are gonna go back to their schools and share. We've had a town hall meeting that interested citizens in our community conducted with senior high students, well, middle and senior high students from our 4 campuses. And our students were awesome, like we would expect them to be, and had some excellent feedback and comments. And I just told them, hey, if we don't do this more and don't do this again, you hold me accountable. And so just looking forward to the opportunities to hear and to engage voices more. And I think you'd be really proud of what we've done, what we've started, and what we're going to continue. That next slide has a couple of items there for you. I asked Secretary Key, well, I'll make this comment. When first the discussions came up some years ago about consolidation in my community, and when I say my community, I mean that. I'm born and raised in Pine Bluff, and I've been here my entire life, with the exception of some time in Stuttgart, Memphis, but mostly I've been here. But when the discussion came up, I was one of the first people to say, I'm not for it. I've seen the 4 districts in this county be successful, and I've seen great things happen. But at the same time, and even then, we had the downturn in enrollment that we would end up having as sharp. But I was not. And I was looking back at what we've been and what we could have been. And by the way, also what I even still think we could be. But a lot of work would have to happen. So there are some people who think I am against local control, as perhaps I've embraced the opportunity for DESE, ADE, to support and work with schools. But the handwriting was on the wall that some changes had to happen. And so where I go with that is when the decision was made, it was a tearjerker for me. But again, it had to be. And I was proud of the fact that the department and others saw the hard work that Dalloway had. But upon being annexed, you stop and you take inventory and you do what you gotta do. So I'm very proud of the opportunity to serve Palmer School District I used to work in, now I'm back to in the Dalloway community. But I was very concerned that if we went too fast with local control, that it could be a struggle to the stability and that it needed to happen well. And I'm very excited about what Ms. Smith has said. So I asked Secretary Key if he would consider allowing me to create a community advisory committee. And that actually will be made up of ambassadors from 20 key organizations in our city. And so that we not only have the two-way conversation with an individual who represents whomever they represent, but we very specifically have an individual whose organization's leader has committed that person, plus also committed the opportunity for that person to share, to have opportunities to talk to that entire organization, to glean information, to share survey links or what have you, and to focus on this specific work. And so there are 20 of them made up of multiple organizations, UAPB, CART, DHS, law enforcement, those you see there, civic, faith-based, education community, law enforcement, juvenile services, and multiple ones. So in a room, there are 20 people who will go back and talk with the hundreds and hundreds of people who are represented by those 20. And Secretary Key gave me the green light to doing this. And that team is awesome. We're super excited. And the goal for us is to create a strategic plan for Palmer School District. So the opportunity is not just to have those smaller advisory committees that I talked to, as I told you, parent, teacher, student, but to have an advisory committee across the entire community. And then they will help us engage and get feedback from the community, even beyond those organizations, even beyond those 20 ambassadors. So we're super excited about this opportunity. Some press releases have been shared, and in each meeting, we always give them opportunity to give us feedback about, how the meeting is going, what else they see, what else it is that they need. We've laid the groundwork for strategic planning and how that work goes. And this really first big thing that we're launching right after MLK Day is the community survey that we're going to use as a baseline set of data. And we're going to push it through these communities, through our retail partners, through all of our stakeholders, to again give this community a baseline for data associated directly with the community. So the Community Advisory Committee is going to be a very powerful voice for us.
Thank you for sharing that. I thought the way in which the committee was formed was really actually pretty creative and smart. A lot of times when you have community advisories, it's just individuals that are active in their community, but they don't really have a group behind them that they're going back and sharing to. They're just this individual. And so when Barbara brought this idea, and it was Barbara's idea, she said, I feel like I need to bring groups and have somebody who's representing that group so they know they're going back. So the Divine Nine, who represents the different fraternities and sororities that are very active in the community, they have a representative that they know. They go back then and they share that with all the fraternities and sororities. The Minstrel Alliance group that's very active, they've got someone on there who goes back then to their committee and they share it with that group. Pulling in the general public for those comments and those pieces, that's the part that we've got to make sure we get right. We've got the surveys, but the hope with this is creating that strategic plan. That's huge. And let me tell you why that's huge. They are determining what it is they need for their community.
Yes.
And they're the ones who then, that community is going to have to support that. So here's the consideration for this board as we move forward, okay? So that yellow is what we're currently in. And we're currently making the strategic plan, okay? They had their clean fiscal audit. We feel like our finances are getting better. We're hoping that we'll be able to release from fiscal distress possibly at the beginning of next year. Okay, the finance office will be the one that makes those recommendations to Commissioner Key, and then he in turn would make that recommendation. So we feel like there is a place for release there at some point. Okay, they're not there yet. We still have too many bumps going on in the office that we've got to make sure and get smooth. For 22-23, so this would be next year. In November of next year, the consideration for either an appointed or elected local board with somewhat of a limited authority. This was something that you guys did with Little Rock School District, where you had some things where, for stability, we had a superintendent that was consistent, and the district then had to continue to report on their exit criteria. Okay, so things for this board to think about as we, now I'm not saying this is what we're doing today. These are things for this board to consider. As the community is making that strategic plan, that's what we begin reporting on, progress made for that plan, that they as a group put together. And so as we get into 22, 23, we start looking at them actually having some type of board in that 4th year that is getting trained, that is supporting the current strategic plan that they've put in place. And we have the consistency of the same superintendent, the same goals and initiatives as we're moving forward. And then when we look at year 5 in 23, 24, it could possibly be a consideration of a full release if progress has continued to be made on the strategic plan that the community and the department work together to create. So that's kind of like when I put it up here, again, that's all the years together from where we started, and all of this again is being done during COVID, to where we currently are in the yellow, and then the next 2 years of what we need to think about. So as we get those new board zones established this spring, we could think about what does that look like then for next year? And could there be an appointed board, or could there be a partially elected board? And I think that's going to really fall to the continued progress we continue to make within the district and that community advisory committee. Did you want to make any comments about that? Okay. So I feel like fleshing this out really by dates and times and things to think about was probably an important conversation today. Having this timeline to go back and talk about with their community advisory committee and their stakeholders is important too, because there is a time, there is a deadline, and we could possibly start seeing some type of local control coming back in place by next year. Any questions?
Thank you for this incredible report. I do have a question about mentioning the school board either being appointed or elected. How do you determine?
The state board is the one who determines that.
Any other questions on this side? Over here, Mr. Sutton, Ms. Hust. Online, Dr. Moore. Ms. Woods. Mr. Henderson. I just want to say thank you for all the work that has gone into this during unprecedented times. I mean, this would be difficult work under great circumstances, but to do it under the pressures of trying to deal with pandemic and how do I keep kids safe and then to let the work keep going forward, you know, I am very appreciative of all of your work. The team, Ms. Warren, you and your team have done to make this go as smoothly as possible. I think that as a board, you know, I can't speak for all of you, but I feel good about our decision, and I feel good about the direction that it's going. I know there's more work to be done, but I really appreciate all that you have done. So thank you.
Thank you.
Sure. Dr. Hill.
I want to echo that and say don't be afraid of failure when you're trying to transform, because that's oftentimes that's what happened. I think Nelson Mandela said it best: when you lose and you learn, you don't lose. So as long as you learn from what caused the loss, then you haven't lost. So keep pushing forward and trying new things to be transformational in an area that needs change.
Okay. All right, appreciate it. Thank you,
Before
Barbara.
you leave and before you get off, Ms. Warren, I just want to say I'm glad Stacey included in the report a little bit of history, because it's always helpful to have some history to know that you know, if we're only looking at one measure of success, and that's statewide test score, how many times have we talked about in here that, you know, that doesn't tell the whole story? And so, you know, we have changed our whole accountability system, so we're not looking at that sole measure of success. So measures of success as we move out and prepare to transition a district in the way that we're doing it, we have to look at all measures. So that history is very helpful. And let me just say, I have the utmost confidence in Mrs. Warren and support her to continue leading this work in not just the times that y'all discussed of you know, but it's through those times, but it's through personal, you know, we all have personal challenges to deal with, challenges in the district, with in the community, with the you know, the things that Dr. Hill has brought up to our attention over the last several years, and the challenges that are there. So you know, staying the course has great merit. I think we've seen that with the success of Little Rock School District, as we've stayed the course. We stayed the course with Mr. Poore, and that new board did as well. And now they have an opportunity to transition with new leadership, and they're well prepared to do that. We're not going to get any credit for that. I don't expect any, and don't need it. But I'm telling you, it was the decision of this board to stay the course there with Little Rock, and the way we did that, has real, you'll never convince me otherwise, that's helped them get to this point of being successful. Staying the course with what we're doing here in Pine Bluff, I believe we'll have the same positive outcomes. It's never as fast as we want it to be, but when it happens, we're going to look back, and I think we'll have a lot to celebrate. And Ms. Warren, thank you for persevering and enduring and leading with all the work that you do down there.
Thank you, sir, for your support.
I do want to acknowledge Jennifer Barbary, who's also on the Zoom. She's the Assistant State Superintendent that's assigned to Pine Bluff and works very closely with Ms. Warren and does a fabulous job down there. And then, of course, you guys, Ms. Warren, you actually get to see her face now. You didn't get to see it a minute ago, so appreciate the work that she's doing. Thanks, Jennifer.
We do have two public comments on Pine Bluff, and so we'll give you the opportunity to do that now. It is a 3-minute comment, so which one of you is going first? Mr. Wright? Okay.
I'd like to say good afternoon to the Arkansas State Board members and Commissioner Key and all the other staff and present members. I am Julius Wright, a concerned Pine Bluff School District stakeholder for the consolidation of the Dollar Way Pine Bluff School District. After reviewing the past history of the park in the ACT Aspire assessment, June of 2015, Governor Hutchinson accepted Lieutenant Governor Tim Griffin and the State Council on Common Core Review recommendation to lead the park assessment and contract with ACT Aspire to include the ACT Aspire assessment within a year. Lieutenant Governor Griffin stated he and the council chose ACT Aspire for several reasons, including the national recognition of ACT, not because of the validity or the reliability of the ACT Aspire. The ACT Aspire was a newly designed assessment in 2014 that did not privilege educators, students, nor parents, or release the items in the manner in which they would test skills, opposed to the park release test items and assessment for preparation. Arkansas has known since 2019 that the Arkansas ACT Aspire scores was flat for 2 years, with fewer than half of the Arkansas students meeting grade level expectation. Arkansas was also aware that we didn't have any other states to compare ACT Aspire scores with because we were the only state administering the ACT Aspire in 2019. The ACT Aspire has not been a nationally recognized, valid, nor reliable assessment for the past 5 years. Arkansas chose to continue using the ACT Aspire data to close, annex, and consolidate schools, which we feel are not in the best interest or fair to the students in Dollar Way, Pine Bluff, and the state of Arkansas. We are deeply concerned how the state of Arkansas removed the park assessment in less than 30 days and has known for the past 5 years that the newly designed 2014 ACT Aspire is not a nationally recognized test. Arkansas has not done anything in the best interest of the students in Arkansas to withdraw from the ACT Aspire assessment, nor has it made recommendation to Governor Hutchinson to review or to withdraw from the ACT Aspire assessment. Arkansas has not annexed and have not consolidated our schools in an act of good faith or best interest of our students, using ACT Aspire result to create a need to support in Arkansas. Thank you for allowing me to have comments today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. Ms. Wright?
Good afternoon, Arkansas State Board members, Commissioner Key, and all others present. I am Charlene Wright, a concerned Pine Bluff School District stakeholder for the consolidation of Dalloway and Pine Bluff schools. Mrs. Smith almost stated most of my presentation, but again, the consolidation will create a new Pine Bluff School District that would result in a new district not under state authority and would be controlled locally. As she stated previously, it would result in moderate to significant cost-saving opportunities due to the merger of central office services and staff. The newly formed district would receive incentive funding of approximately $3.5 million over 2 years to support consolidation. We feel that allowing the current leaderships and supports remain violates the Arkansas Educational Support and Accountability System. We feel that the leadership and supports should have been permanently reassigned or suspended, just as the school board of directors and past superintendents were in Dalloway and Pine Bluff. We feel that the continuation of the same authority, superintendent, and the same improvement providers in the Dalloway School District are not in the best interest of the students in Pine Bluff. They were not successful in restoring the Dalloway School District to local control in 5 years, and some of it was not due to the pandemic. We feel that this is double jeopardy in that Dalloway School District is subject to the same ineffective leadership for over 5 years that did not produce results, with a student population of 907, and now they are annexed with another struggling district with a population of 2,799 in level 4 of improvement for a total population of 3,706. We feel that Pine Bluff and Dalloway school districts have been set up for failure to be annexed into the remaining local school district in Pine Bluff. The leadership has been given extenuating circumstances or proposed waiver, but no extenuating circumstances or waivers has been given to the district in regard to the lack of validity and reliability of the ACT Expire assessment, the pandemic, and not taking the summative assessment in 2020, ineffective leaderships and supports and other factors beyond our control in Dalloway and the Pine Bluff School District. I heard Mrs. Warren comments prior to the annexation. She did not engage the Pine Bluff School District community. I hope that she's listening to that. We were denied the 13 community engagement workshops that Dalloway was given. Again, we are for consolidation of the Dalloway and Pine Bluff school districts.
Thank you, Ms. Wright. I think that's the end of our quarterly reports because no one had any questions on Little Rock. And so our next item is school report cards. Ms. Kaufman and Ms. Saraceni.
Good afternoon. Debbie Kaufman, Public School Accountability, and my colleague,
Carly Saraceni, Educator Effectiveness Licensure. Oh, Carly Saraceni, Educator Effectiveness and Licensure.
So we were asked to give a quick update about school report cards, and so the teacher in me wants to always make sure that everyone knows how to access a school report card. So as we're bringing this up, we always, in our presentations, link in My School Info. If you've not been to My School Info, just type in My School Info in the Google. It's going to be the #1 thing to select. Click on it. It's very easy. So here we go quickly. Now when you come to My School Info, our good friend Regent has made a lot of new features available for our public viewing audience. One is in the red bar across the top. You can just click report card and it's going to pull you up to a page that looks like this. The other beautiful thing about that is at the top you can change the school year. Oh, 2021, I want to look at 2018-19, I want to go back, so I can make changes there. The other thing is he's now put in the report type. So not only can you get to the report card, but you can do that little drop down on report type and see the ESSA school index. So I love that because now I can look at them quick and not have to go the search feature to get to them. But if I'm on the ESSA school index, I just scroll down to the school, I can type in the school name, I can click on the letter. If we had letter grades, you could click to see all the A's, all the B's. So it's a really great feature as we get back with all of the data that we have available. But you can just click to open that file and get to that. Of course, you're going to get there and you could go back our traditional pathway of looking up there in the left-hand corner on the red bar and clicking search. At that time, you could have either typed in the school name or the school district. And I want to give you just a little hot off the press from last night, working with one of our co-ops, and they said, I can't find the school. And so I went to school, search, school, typed in the school, and it came up with this error, like they don't exist. I thought, they were there yesterday morning. So what happened, but what I had forgotten, so I went the district route, typed in the district name, went to this page, pulled up their schools, and I could find the school. And what had happened is it was one of our schools that became a district conversion school. They changed their name. So if you ever run into that and you're looking for a school that you're getting an error message that says this school or district doesn't exist anymore, come back to the report card and try it this way. Or if you're on school page, go to the district tab. And you can usually get there to it. And sometimes I just forget. They've all got new names. We talked about a charter today is changing, or a district conversion, changing their name. All good reasons to change, but when you're trying to find things, they're listed under whatever their name was officially at that time. So the second thing I wanted you to know, not only how to get here, but from the very beginning, our stakeholders asked for reports that they could understand. And so Arkansas is one of the very few that does what I would call nested reports, just like nesting dolls. If you need a quick one-pager, then you click on the school rating page and that's going to tell you the most important information. It would tell you the letter grade if we had one. But it's going to tell you this year, it's going to tell you adjusted and unadjusted scores, right? And we've looked at that before. So that's a critical component. If you click on the ESSA school index, you know that it's going to give you the full report, or if you're on that one pager, there's always a link. And that's the other beautiful thing that I think Arjit has done for us is he didn't get you one and make you back all the way out. If you're in one, there's usually a link to get you to the next deeper report. So, accountability at a glance or school rating page, one pager. I want to know more. ESSA school index. That really gives you all the charts, graphs, everything you might need to know about our accountability system. And then of course today, what we want to look at is that you can see then everything you've ever wanted to know about a school on our school report card. And that school report card gives you the data for the past 3 years. So it gives you a quick way to look at what's going on over 3 years. So back on this report card page, I clicked at the top, I typed in the correct year, pulled up the report type, school report card, and I can open or click on the little eyeball and see, or download or send it to my friends, or whatever it is I need to do with this report. Once you're inside the school report, as you remember, we have modules. If you hover over those modules with your mouse, it will give you a very brief description of what's contained in there, so you know what all of those numbers mean when you're looking in there. And then, of course, we tried to put as many supporting documents around this. There's FAQs, lots of things around there to help you. So kind of follow the data. So the achievement data, the growth data, the EL data, the SQSS data, the graduation rate data, that's all included in that ESSA school index report that also shows 3 years of data. Now, in the school report card, gives you even more breakdown of that data. How did the subgroups all perform? There's crosstabs of all of the information as required by federal law. Some of the other things in this report card are also required by state law, and the intent is to provide information to the public. So there is a module,
And it's called Teacher Quality, and you had that NCTQ report earlier, and we actually got some thumbs up on a few things. Well, we wanted to circle back around. All this information found on their school report card, they gathered for their NCTQ report from here. And so we just wanted to show you, as you're looking on that first page, that it actually breaks it down and gives you lots of data. This data is not disaggregated into high poverty and low poverty, but if you click another button, because you can see lots, it does break it down to the top 25% and the bottom 25%. This gives you all kinds of data looking at the teacher. Anywhere from how many national board teachers I have in my district to advanced degrees, how many are on our exceptions. So we just wanted to let you see that everything crosses back. And again, it's not just state level, but what we have to do for the federal level as well. And then that's where a lot of these outside agencies pull the information from, especially NCTQ, so that you can see.
So just to kind of wrap up about reports, available to the public. Love it. Love that our anyone, student, parent, journalist, anyone interested in Arkansas schools, potential companies wanting to come to our state, can check out this information on our website. The school rating, accountability at a glance one-pager, and the ESSA school index are released in October. So we give the assessment in April, May. We have all of the calculations run and make it public by October. We then take all that, get it all entered into that school report card. By the way, don't ever hit print on the report card. You know, it's hard to believe that in the beginning, the state printed the school report card and mailed it to the school district.
We would look for those boxes if we were ready.
I mean, don't print. That's all I can say. Don't try to print. But I do want you to know that we did meet the federal requirement of having our school report card posted on My School Info before December 31st. We were open December 30th and ready to go. And then we will meet the state requirement of having all the state information that will come later on, like school board hours and things like that. That will come later. We'll have all of that entered and posted by April 15th. So we're right on track. And hopefully our public is appreciating that and taking the time to really look and study about what's going on in schools. But just in case they're not, we'd like to bring up some points of interest. One is we've been in a pandemic, and we were not able to test in 2019-20 because of that. But Arkansas was one of the very few schools that got up and got going, was able to fully implement our accountability system for 2021, and we were able to exit 5 of our schools from in need of comprehensive support and improvement. Now, if you remember, what is CSI? That is the schools that were in the lowest 5% of Title I schools. Remember, we're always going to have that. Even when we're doing great, the bar is just going to raise. But the exciting thing is, here we are in a pandemic, and these schools met exit criteria, which is 2 years of progress. And they met above that cut score. So they're just raising the expectation for everyone. And so we just so celebrate them and appreciate them. And we exited 6 schools from needing support in additional targeted support and improvement. And those schools had been identified because a sub-pop was underperforming. And so what I just think this speaks to is our school districts are really utilizing the data in our accountability systems. They're working together in their PLCs. They're doing the right things curriculum-wise, instructional-wise, and it's showing. Now, our schools that did not meet exit criteria, that doesn't mean that they're not moving in the right direction, but they didn't meet the exit criteria. And so just want you to know we're keeping an eye on them, having constant conversations with them, but we do want to celebrate our schools that met the exit criteria. The other thing that's really important in the report card is the graduation rate. So students graduated May 2021. We go through the process of calculating graduation rate and post it in the school report card. Our graduation rate for the state this year for the 4-year cohort is 88.5%. Not bad. A little down from 2020, but once again, we're in a pandemic. We expected that there could be some adjustment there. What I would appreciate you looking at is looking at the colors diagonally. So in 2020, we had 88.8% of our 4-year cohort graduate on time. But look what happened when you look up to the yellow. That same cohort of students now are 5-year cohorts, and more kids graduated. Isn't that exciting? So school's doing a lot of great things. Let me just say that. It's amazing. But I wanted to put this in there for you, and hopefully that will encourage you to want to go into the school report card and look around and see how the schools in your neighborhood are doing. The schools that make exceptional progress, we highlight every year. And so I just want to remind you, some of you were around from the beginning of this when we started Schools on the Move Toward Excellence, but every year after these reports go out, we go through all the data and analyze and identify how did some of our schools do? Who were they that showed that this really can be done? And in this one in particular, this is overall increase in ESSA School Index. You see we have 2 schools that made a 10-point gain during a pandemic. And as you scroll on down through the document, you'll see that, which this is just a screenshot, but if you scroll on down through that, what you would see is that the superintendents are given kind of an explanation of how they were able to do that. And hopefully others will have conversations, think about that, maybe reach out to them. But this report goes on to talk about who improved in achievement, who improved in growth, and I think it's just one of our great ways to highlight. Our communications office has been putting out notices on social media announcing some of the schools that are listed in our Schools on the Move so that our communities are really celebrating them. And
I just want to bring your attention to the second bullet. There's been a 3% drop since 1819 of teachers not being fully certified. So that means during this pandemic, it's not as bad as we thought it could be, and so we're doing rather well. And then even with the teachers under licensure exceptions, 4.7% of that and 4.3, those are teachers on additional licensure plans that are already certified. So that 15% looks huge, but really it's not as huge as you think. So our schools are doing some great things and utilizing those pathways to licensure.
So, any questions about the school report card or any of our reports?
Anyone here have a question about report cards? What about online? I think you did a great job. Be sure you thank Archie and his team about all the improvements that they made, because it becomes more and more user friendly, and the more data we can have, the better prepared we are. So thank you.
And the quicker we get it.
Yes.
So Arjit and his team, Dr. Rowland, her team, our teams, they're all working together.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good job.
Good job.
All right. Let's see where we're at. We're down to where it says adjournment.
So moved.
So Mr. Sutton's already moved if we go home, okay? And Ms. Dean seconded, so I think we are adjourned. Safe travels, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for being accommodating this month. See y'all next month.
Bye-bye.
Bye.